Chapter 318. Family Spirit Land, Repair the Tao Foundation. I naturally trust you, Xianxia said softly, her luscious lips gently pressing together. Though she said so, her heart still harbored doubts about such effects on the Tao Foundation. However, thinking that she would soon return to Qingyun sect, she sighed softly and complied with Lu Changsheng's request. Lu Changsheng could tell that Xianxia still had some disbelief. He immediately wanted to prove through his actions that he, Lu Changsheng, was a man of integrity. He would not fabricate such a lie just out of lust. Soon, a rustling sound emerged, accompanied by a soft, cold whimper. The symphony of a grand life harmony began to play. Who knows how much time had passed? Huff! As the yin-yang energies entered Xianxia's body, Lu Changsheng let out a long breath. He embraced the sweat-drenched Xianxia and extended his divine sense into her body, to see how the yin-yang energies were repairing and purifying the Tao Foundation. After all, he knew of it, but this was his first attempt. Moreover, Xianxia's situation was somewhat unique. He saw the yin-yang energies transform into a yin-yang fish, entering Xianxia's Qi ocean core. They swirled around her supreme yin profound moon Tao Foundation. During the process, a faint yin-yang qi diffused over the cracks of the Tao platform. Shiyu, how is it, do you feel any effect? Lu Changsheng asked after observing for a while. He could tell that the yin-yang energies should be repairing and purifying the Tao Foundation, but there were no apparent changes to the cracks on the platform. He could not discern whether the Tao platform was benefiting from the yin-yang energies' purification. Xianxia propped up her soft, powerless body with some effort, her porcelain skin flushed with a hint of pink. With her hand gently caressing her slightly swollen lower abdomen, she closed her eyes to sense the changes in her Tao platform. In this moment, she could clearly feel that under the nourishment of these yin-yang energies, her Tao platform was indeed being repaired. What astonished her even more was that these yin-yang energies resonated with her supreme yin profound moon Tao Foundation, giving her the faint sense that, with enough yin-yang energies, not only would her Tao Foundation be repaired but it might also undergo some kind of transformation. Changsheng. The effect of these yin-yang energies made Xianxia's heart flutter. Her stunning face lifted to look at Lu Changsheng, at a loss for words for a moment. With a gap in her Tao heart, her Tao Foundation was damaged, leaving her inner world not at peace. Now, seeing that her Tao Foundation could indeed be repaired and perhaps even further improved, her heart was tumultuous with emotion. Shiyu, how is it I didn't deceive you, did I? Seeing Xianxia's reaction, Lu Changsheng immediately knew the yin-yang energies were effective. He snorted lightly, slightly annoyed, and pinched her delicate skin playfully. He could see that Xianxia hadn't really believed he could repair the Tao Foundation before. Lu Lang, she was wrong, Xianxia voiced sweetly, her eyes brimming with moisture as she nestled against Lu Changsheng's chest. She was a little less aloof and a little more fragile. Normally, her use of the supreme forgetful love technique allowed her to maintain a tranquil mind, undisturbed by emotions. But their recent dual cultivation had nearly nullified the supreme forgetful love technique. And she didn't operate the technique to suppress her emotions. She even prevented the supreme forgetful love technique from activating automatically. It was as if she had a subtle revelation about the second layer of the supreme forgetful love technique. Clouds have affections, the moon holds affection. The moon, accompanied by the clouds, shone even more brightly. The clouds, illuminated by the moon, appeared even more vibrant and graceful. If she stood on the ground and looked up, admiring how the two complemented each other, it would result in the creation of a beautiful scenery, just like a painting of the clear blue sky. It's good that you understand your mistake. How do you think this effect is? Approximately how many times will it take to repair the cracks in your Tao Foundation? Lu Changsheng, using his divine sense to observe, could tell that this kind of thing wasn't going to be fixed in 1 or 2 tries, it's going to take several sessions. Possibly dozens of times. Xianxia's cheeks were slightly flushed as she gave an estimate. Thinking of this number meant accepting the number of times she'd have to engage in dual cultivation with Lu Changsheng, which made her hang her head in shyness. She had actually been planning to return to the Qingyun sect. But how could she return if she had to repair her Dao foundation? Dozens of times. Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng's eyebrows raised slightly. The yin-yang energies he possessed were not simply mana, but the essence of the human body. After each use, they had to be slowly replenished through cultivation. The yin-yang energies he had just expended would likely take about 10 days to a half-month to recuperate. If it was going to take 50 times for Xianxia's foundation to be restored, it meant that it would take about 1 to 2 years. For cultivators, 1 to 2 years to repair a crack in the foundation is naturally not considered a long time. Changxing, your yin-yang energies not only repair the Dao foundation but also resonate with mine. Xianxia continued to speak. She discussed the effects of the yin-yang energies on her foundation. There's such an effect? Lu Changxing was also somewhat surprised. He really didn't know that his yin-yang energies had such an effect. If his yin-yang energies could further improve a perfect foundation, that would be too heaven-defying. Wait a minute. Could this effect be because, at the time my 7 lamps foundation advanced to the yin-yang 5 elements foundation, it merged with Shiyu's great yin moon essence? After all, this great yin moon essence and Shiyu share the same origin, so maybe that's why my yin-yang energies have an extra effect on Shiyu's foundation. Lu Changsheng speculated in his mind. He felt that if it could also upgrade a perfect foundation, it would be too heaven-defying. He then shared his speculation with Xianxia. Xianxia was also somewhat astonished after hearing this. She hadn't expected that Lu Changsheng's yin-yang energies were formed by her own great yin moon essence and the great sun essence. However, she was also unclear about this situation. After all, her understanding of foundations was limited. Shiyu, approximately how many times before your foundation can undergo a transformation? Lu Changsheng asked again. I don't know either. Xianxia shook her head gently. She could only feel the resonance of the yin-yang energies in the process of repairing her foundation. It made her feel that under the nourishment of the yin-yang energies, her foundation would undergo a certain change. No worries, with persistent effort even an iron rod can be ground to a needle. Shiyu, rest assured, I will definitely repair your foundation and help you take it a step further. Lu Changsheng spoke with deep affection, his tone growing firmer and more sincere. Xianxia, with Lu Changsheng's gesture, lifted her chin slightly, her cheeks blushing, and softly hummed in approval. By the way, Shiyu, I have a cultivation technique that's not only beneficial for cultivation but might also be useful for repairing the foundation. Lu Changsheng thought of his tender embrace technique and mentioned it to Xianxia. He also wanted to try out another effect of his foundation. Chapter 319. If you feel bad about it, have a few children under one. Several days later, the sky cleared up and the rain ceased. Poof, Lu Changxing flipped over and rose to his feet. He took out 3 elixir medicines and swallowed them. Holding 2 spirit stones in his hand, he sat cross-legged in cultivation, absorbing and devouring copious amounts of pure spiritual energy. In the next moment, within the sea of qi in his dantian, a drop of liquid mana formed, resembling 7-colored glazed glass. It merged into the multicolored Dan Lake, making the Dan Lake ripple gently, growing slightly in size. Phew, this effect is simply astonishing. But it seems the dual cultivation with Shiyu also has an enhancing effect. Lu Changxing was somewhat astonished and amazed just to have condensed a drop of liquid mana by himself. From qi refinement to the breakthrough of foundation establishment, he had condensed a total of 100 drops of liquid mana within his Dan Lake. Once the total amount of liquid mana reached 150 drops, he could attempt the second level of foundation establishment. Lu Changxing had not expected that just a few days of dual cultivation with Xianxia would directly condense a drop of liquid mana. This speed was truly astonishing. Based on my current speed of cultivation, it takes roughly 2 months to condense a single drop of liquid mana. So these days of dual cultivation are about the same as 2 months of arduous cultivation for me. Lu Changxing calculated in his heart. Previously, his days of dual cultivation with Lu Miaoge amounted to at most half a month's worth of arduous cultivation. But with Xianxia, it was comparable to 2 full months of arduous cultivation. This led Lu Changxing to speculate that it wasn't just the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base that enhanced dual cultivation. It was also the added benefit from dual cultivating with Xianxia. However, he wasn't greedy. The mana cultivated in this manner ultimately wasn't as consolidated as that which he cultivated steadily and methodically. It required time to stabilize. Otherwise, it would result in a weak foundation. So it was something to indulge in occasionally, a fun activity between husband and wife cultivators. But now that I'm at foundation establishment, I can condense the 7 luminaries heart lamp, which not only purges elixir toxicity and guards my mental spirit, but also has the effect of burning nature's spiritual energy, speeding up cultivation, solidifying mana, and strengthening my foundation. So occasionally indulging a little shouldn't be a problem. Lu Changxing also thought about the 7 luminaries heart lamp he had been yearning for. This heart lamp not only aided in cultivation but also possessed combat capabilities. It could enhance his combat power at the foundation establishment stage. Sigh. At that moment, Xianxia also opened her eyes from her meditation, and her clear, beautiful eyes overflowed with tender affection as they looked towards Lu Changxing. The tender embrace technique was certainly not an energy drain technique. It was a superior dual cultivation technique. Not only beneficial for Lu Changxing but also for Xianxia. Especially the past several days of dual cultivation, which allowed Xianxia to gain a deeper understanding of the second level of supreme forgetful love technique. Clouds have emotions, moon has emotions. Shiyu, have I broken your supreme forgetful love technique again? Lu Changxing looked at Xianxia, whose face was full of gentle love, took her into his arms, and teasingly said. He also knew that Xianxia's supreme forgetful love technique would make the practitioner emotionless and indifferent as they cultivated further into it. Even though he didn't want her to end up like that, seeing that Xianxia regained her bright and soft demeanor after breaking through foundation establishment, he couldn't help feeling worried. Worried that, besides her Dao foundation, some other problems arose in her cultivation. Yes, in front of Lu Lang, how can Shiyu adhere to supreme forgetfulness? Xianxia spoke faintly. Yet a hint of deep affection shimmered in her eyes. It was exactly this thread of affection that had compromised her Dao foundation. And after completing foundation establishment, as the two of them continued to dual cultivate, this thread of affection began to spread anew within her heart. She did not suppress these feelings, allowing them to spread and ferment. Lu Changxing noticed Xiaoxia's demeanor and knew that she should be all right. Immediately, he pinched her cheek and chuckled. In that case, does Shiyu have to cultivate by my side for a lifetime? Yes, if Shiyu can never break through supreme forgetfulness, then he'll have to cultivate by Lu Lang's side for a lifetime. Xiaoxia playfully responded in a seemingly light-hearted manner. But her heart skipped a beat. Understanding that if the second layer of supreme forgetful love technique, clouds have emotions, moon has emotions, is as she surmised, then breaking through this layer and advancing further would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Although she harbored feelings for Lu Changxing, she also couldn't let go of her aspiration towards the Tao. Since Shiyu feels this way, then it's fine not to cultivate that supreme forgetfulness. Lu Changxing stated. Although the supreme forgetful love technique is powerful, he saw its side effects as too significant. Hearing this, Xiaoxia's eyes lowered, and her lips quivered as she bit her lip. For a moment, she fell silent. The supreme forgetful love technique was not like other cultivation techniques that could be readily changed. Especially now that she had broken through to foundation establishment, to switch her practice would mean starting all over from scratch. And she was unwilling to give up this supreme forgetful love technique. Because it was only through cultivating this technique that she might be able to travel farther on the path of immortality and see a broader world. I was just saying it casually, Shiyu, don't take it to heart. Besides, I believe that there are always ways to have the best of both worlds, Lu Changxing said, seeing Xiaoxia in such a state, and spoke gently. He knew techniques like the supreme forgetful love technique represented the foundation of the Tao for Xiaoxia, and his words had clearly put Xiaoxia in a difficult position of choosing between her emotions and cultivation. This understanding made him empathetic, and he did not wish to pressure her, believing that in the future, he would find a way that could accommodate both. Changxing, I'm sorry, Xianxia said softly, her voice trembling slightly. Not only did she love Lu Changxing, but she also felt a profound sense of guilt towards him. The more understanding and accommodating Lu Changxing was, the guiltier she felt. Because she was acutely aware that her affection for Lu Changxing was not pure, and now it also encompassed the intention to use his cultivation for her own benefit. In such circumstances, Lu Changxing continued to support her, providing foundation establishment elixirs and helping repair and refine her Dao foundation without seeking anything in return. Her guilt weighed heavily on her. Chapter 320. If you feel bad about it, have a few children, there's no need for apologies between us. If you truly feel uneasy in your heart, Shiyu, and one day you manage to break through the supreme level of detachment and have to leave, then have a few children for me. As a remembrance of our relationship, let me look upon the children and be reminded of you. Lu Changxing said this half-jokingly. Have children? When Xianxia heard these words, her heart trembled slightly, she became briefly lost in thought, and her face revealed a blush of shyness. Having spent so much time with Lu Changxing, she naturally knew how fond he was of children. But she had never considered the matter of having children. Or rather, most cultivators, unless they see no hope in their path of cultivation, even if they have partners, do not think about having children. Especially someone like Xianxia, who was at the prime age for vigorous advancement in cultivation, with a bright future ahead, would think even less about having children. Now that Lu Changxing had brought it up, Xianxia couldn't help but genuinely ponder the idea. She thought about having a child for Lu Changxing. That way, when she left, someone would still be there to keep him company. But the thought of childbirth scared her inexplicably. She remembered hearing as a child that childbirth was like passing through the gates of hell. She also thought about how, if she had a child and she wasn't around, the child would be motherless and might be bullied by others. For a moment, Xiaoxia's heart raced and her thoughts were in turmoil. Shiyu, what are you thinking about? You're not considering what we're going to name our kids in the future, are you? Seeing Xiaoxia's blush and her thoughtful, conflicted expression, Lu Changxing laughed softly. Although he suggested that Xiaoxia have children, it was mostly a preventive measure, tilting more towards a joke. After all, she does have a core formation master. He dared not truly plan to cajole someone else's disciple into having children. Who said I would have children for you? Xiaoxia looked at Lu Changxing's teasing, half-smiling expression, spat lightly, and showed a bit of girlish moodiness. She pounded her little fist on Lu Changxing's chest, saying one thing while meaning another. Watching the fairy behave in such a manner, Lu Changxing shouted, "Io" in amusement. Then the two of them were affectionate for a while. Shiyu, I plan to buy some items in the Qingyun market and then return to Qingzhou Mountain. Are you going back to the Red Leaf Valley market with me, or? Lu Changxing asked. Cultivating together with Xiaoxia in the Qingyun market, life was undoubtedly pleasant. But after all, he had a family. At home, there were a bunch of wives and children. This trip had already lasted over 5 months. Having not returned for such a long time, and now that his foundation establishment was complete, he naturally had to go back. So, he thought of purchasing materials for crafting the 7 luminaries heart lamp in the Qingyun market before heading back to Qingzhou Mountain or the Red Leaf Valley market. Changxing, I've been away for quite a long time on this trip, and now that I've succeeded in foundation establishment, I should also make a trip back. I will come to find you afterward, Shiyu. Upon hearing this, Xiaoxia said softly. Having been on her cultivation journey for a while and now that she had succeeded in foundation establishment, she needed to go back to report and inform her master. All right, when you do, just come directly to Qingzhou Mountain or the Red Leaf Valley Market and contact me. Lu Changxing nodded in agreement. The two of them did not linger. They packed up their things, cleaned out the cave dwelling, and prepared to leave. As he left the cave, Lu Changxing put on his mask artifact once again, reverting to the disguised appearance he had before. This mask was no longer the lower-grade magical instrument he had initially bought, the 100 Changes mask. It was a higher-grade magical instrument with a similar effect. Once disguised, unless faced with a foundation establishment cultivator using a special technique or divine skills for seeing through illusions, it was usually impenetrable. Xianxia, however, did not disguise herself. When she rented the cave dwelling with a token, she had already revealed her identity. And her situation was different from Lu Changsheng's. She had no such concerns. The two of them opened the cave dwelling and were ready to go downhill to the rental office to return it. At a distance, a young man noticed that Xiaoxia's cave dwelling opened with a boom. He immediately got up, his face full of joy as he came forward to congratulate her. But when he saw Xiaoxia walking out of the cave closely with an ordinary-looking young man, his body suddenly stiffened, and his previously smiling face turned extremely unsightly. "Meng brother." At this moment, Xiaoxia also saw the young man and was somewhat surprised. "I heard that Shiyu was here attempting foundation establishment, so I came to congratulate you." Meng Yibai, with his face looking a bit gloomy and unpleased, said. After speaking, he transformed into a streak of escape light and left, entering a nearby, meaning second, character cave dwelling. He knew Xiaoxia was renting a cave dwelling to attempt foundation establishment and thus stayed outside waiting after he noticed the anomaly in nature's spiritual energy. He had hoped to immediately congratulate her upon her exit to win the affection of a beautiful person. For this, he even prepared a special gift. But he never expected that Xiaoxia would walk out with a man, and that the two of them would show such intimate behavior, looking very much like a couple. He had guessed from the anomaly in nature's spiritual energy that there might be two people in the cave trying for foundation establishment, but he had not considered the possibility of the other being a man. After all, Xiaoxia was known in the Qingyun sect as Fairy Shiyu, famous for her aloofness and pride. She rarely interacted with people, let alone men. And yet, the usually cold and dignified Fairy Shiyu was now showing a gentle smile and affectionate behavior towards a man. Thinking about the two of them attempting foundation establishment together and staying in the dwelling for months, Meng Yibai felt sick to his stomach. Slut! The more Meng Yibai thought about it, the angrier he became, punching the cave's wall in frustration and grinding his teeth in resentment. I thought she was so cold and aloof, but now it seems she's nothing special. Who is this person, and why don't I remember such a person in our sect? Meng Yibai, thinking of Lu Changsheng's appearance, had eyes filled with intense murderous intent. Chapter 321. If you feel bad about it, have a few children already proud and arrogant, he couldn't swallow the affront he encountered at that moment. As for Xiaoxia, he didn't dare to offend her, so he immediately shifted all the blame onto Lu Changsheng. This person's name is Meng Yibai, the grandson of a false core immortal from our sect. It seems he came over upon hearing about my foundation establishment in the marketplace to offer his congratulations. Xiaoxia watched Meng Yibai leave with an unsightly expression, and to prevent Lu Changsheng from misunderstanding, she explained softly. This person must have some pursuit towards Shiyu. Otherwise, his face wouldn't look so troubled. Lu Changsheng chuckled and said, he thought it was fortunate that he had disguised himself. Otherwise, he might have incurred someone's resentment just because of this. After all, the trouble brought by beauty is something no one can be certain of. Xiaoxia nodded slightly in agreement. Although she practiced the great art of forgetting emotions, which made her emotions detached, she was not ignorant of human relationships and worldly affairs. Naturally, she also knew the other party had such intentions. If the disciples of the Qingyun sect found out that Fairy Shiyu was pursued and won over by me, wouldn't I be chased to the ends of the earth? Lu Changsheng joked. He was not jealous because of this. If Xiaoxia had no suitors in the Qingyun sect, he wouldn't believe it himself. Just like in the Nine Dragons market, Lu Miaoga had many suitors. But in the end, it was he, Lu, who had more charm and won the Bowtie's favor. It's not that exaggerated. Upon hearing his words, the corners of Xiaoxia's mouth lifted upwards. A hint of joy bubbled up in her heart. Immediately afterward, the two arrived at their cave-dwelling rental. When the caretaker Han saw Xiaoxia and Lu Changsheng come, judging by their appearances and auras, he knew that they had both succeeded in their foundation establishment. One sign was the anomaly of the nature's spiritual energy vortex earlier, which indicated successful foundation establishment. The other sign was that, if foundation establishment failed, even with foundation establishment elixirs, one's energy would be weak and disordered in the short term. But Xianxia and Lu Changxing had mana that showed no signs of weakness or disorder, deep and profound like an ocean, which made him feel it was unfathomable. Congratulations to Xiao Shishu on successful foundation establishment, and to this senior on successful foundation establishment. May your path to the great Tao be promising. Caretaker Han immediately bowed deeply. Now that Xianxia had achieved foundation establishment, her status had naturally risen. Before, he was able to call her junior sister due to joining the sect earlier and being older. Now he naturally had to address her as Shishu and refer to Lu Changxing as senior. Xiao Shishu, when you were undertaking foundation establishment, Immortal Du and Meng Yibai, Meng Shishu, came here and asked about you. Immortal Du, upon knowing you were attempting foundation establishment, instructed that no one should disturb you, Caretaker Han continued, taking the opportunity to remind her. Though this matter wasn't something big, he felt it was still necessary to inform Xianxia. After all, she was not only a disciple of a nascent soul immortal but had also achieved foundation establishment. If she could leave a good impression, it might be beneficial for her future. Upon hearing this, Xianxia nodded slightly. She had already seen Meng Yibai just now. As for Immortal Du, she knew he was a false core immortal presiding over the Qingyun market. The fact that he ordered not to disturb her was clearly a show of goodwill. Thank you, Brother Han. Xianxia bowed slightly in response. She naturally knew that in the Qingyun sect, one's status greatly increased upon breaking through to the foundation establishment stage. A Qi refinement disciple must address a foundation establishment disciple as Shishu. However, she was not accustomed to such a title yet, especially since Caretaker Han was 20 to 30 years her senior. This fairy Shiyu and this person seemed to have an extraordinary relationship. Not only did they establish their foundations together, but they also stayed in the cave dwelling for so long. After Xianxia and Lu Changxing left, Caretaker Han was inwardly shocked. He had felt before that the relationship between Lu Changxing and Xianxia was not ordinary. This was why he mentioned not only Immortal Du but also Meng Yibai. After all, young Master Meng was not one with a good temper. If he saw the close relationship between Lu Changxing and Xianxia, he might cause trouble. But what does it have to do with me? Caretaker Han shook his head, deciding not to think further. Having managed affairs for so many years, he knew that there were things one shouldn't be curious about if it wasn't necessary. Changxing, that Immortal Du is an elder of our sect. Since I've come to the market to break through foundation establishment, it's only right for me to pay a visit in both sentiment and etiquette, Xianxia said to Lu Changxing. If she hadn't known about it, it wouldn't matter. But now that she was aware of Immortal Du, and he knew of her visit, it would be inappropriate not to pay a visit. All right, you go ahead. I happen to need to buy some things as well. Lu Changxing smiled and nodded, indicating that after he finished his shopping, he would head straight back to Qingzhou Mountain. Xianxia returned to her usual cool demeanor, showing a hint of tenderness. She then hugged Lu Changxing somewhat reluctantly. Meng Yibai, just down from Core Peak, saw this scene. His already unpleasant expression turned as dark as liver, his fists clenched tight, with murderous intent in his eyes. Before, he had comforted himself, thinking that the two were just friends and therefore somewhat affectionate. But seeing Xianxia take the initiative to embrace Lu Changxing now, to say there was nothing between them would be something not even he could believe. He walked towards the cave-dwelling rentals with an expressionless face. It seems I need to be careful with this person. Lu Changxing also noticed the expressionless Meng Yibai and thought to himself. As a man, he naturally understood men. He could see that someone like Meng Yibai, who radiated vigorous and sharp energy, must have an extremely proud personality. Seeing the object of his pursuit intimate with another might lead him to malice simply out of displeasure. Shortly after, they parted ways, and Lu Changxing headed toward the inner city. He planned to deal with some possessions and buy some materials. Chapter 322, The Army of Golden Armor Warriors, The Way to Enter Qingyun Sect _1 After arriving in the inner city, Lu Changxing didn't go directly to purchase or deal with his belongings. Instead, he found a large inn, checked into a room, and changed into a different disguise. After all, having spent so long in Nine Dragons Market, he had experience with this and wanted to avoid attracting attention. At this time, Lu Changxing also remembered the golden armor bean mother in his system space. Since he had been with Xianxia, he hadn't taken it out. Extract. Lu Changxing opened the system space. His mental spirit flickered slightly. Immediately, a golden bean the size of an egg appeared in front of him. At the same time, detailed information about the golden armor bean mother emerged in Lu Changxing's mind. The golden armor bean mother could transform into a second-rank golden armor warrior or be used for planting and breeding spirit beans. The information about this golden armor warrior was close to what he had speculated before. It was somewhat similar to a puppet and a demon beast. Or rather, it was something in between a puppet and a demon beast. It had slightly more autonomy than a puppet. It didn't require divine sense to control and could follow simple commands. But compared to demon beasts, it had less autonomy. It could only do as commanded and lacked the ability to adapt spontaneously. But this golden armor warrior didn't consume spirit stones like a puppet, nor did it require food and drink like a demon beast. It could absorb and store spiritual energy on its own, and, when completely depleted, could recover slowly if placed in spiritual earth. This golden armor bean mother's transformed golden armor warrior has the strength of the late second rank. Even if its autonomy is low and it doesn't have many techniques or divine skills, it's still comparable to a top-level second-rank puppet. It shouldn't be a problem facing medium-stage foundation establishment cultivators. Lu Changxing had an approximate understanding of the golden armor bean mother's combat capability. The combat capability was quite straightforward, geared towards close combat and acting as a meat shield. Similar to a puppet, ordinary foundation establishment cultivators would struggle to withstand its full-force attacks. However, as I suspected, the primary function of this golden armor bean mother lies in its ability to be planted and cultivated. A faint smile appeared on Lu Changxing's face, understanding the planting and breeding aspect of the golden armor bean mother. It takes 3 years to sprout, 3 years to grow leaves, 3 years to blossom, and 3 years to bear pods. In other words, it can complete a reproduction cycle and bear fruit every 12 years. Each time, it can yield 5 to 10 golden armor spirit beans. All these golden armor spirit beans can transform into golden armor warriors, although they are not as powerful as the golden armor bean mother. They only possess the strength of the late first rank, roughly equivalent to a high-grade first-rank puppet. A 12-year cycle is a bit long. Moreover, these golden armor spirit beans can't be planted and bred like the golden armor bean mother. Otherwise, if I could continuously breed more from the beans, I could establish an entire army of golden armor warriors. Lu Changxing felt a tinge of regret in his heart. When he first obtained second-rank puppet techniques, he envisioned creating an army of puppets to execute the puppet C technique. However, due to the high cost of creating puppets and the need for personal control, he had to abandon the idea. But these golden armor spirit beans could be planted, and he could have them do tasks with just simple commands, rekindling his interest in this approach. Alas, these golden armor spirit beans also had their flaws. Unless necessary, I should avoid using the golden armor bean mother for combat. Otherwise, if it gets damaged or develops problems and can't blossom and bear fruit, that would be a major loss. After all, the golden armor warriors produced from these golden armor spirit beans are extremely convenient for combat, tilling spiritual earth, forging puppet parts, or any simple miscellaneous tasks. They require no human manipulation, no food or drink, no rest, and as long as they have enough spiritual power, they can work endlessly. When their spiritual power is exhausted or they suffer from wear and tear, provided it is not too severe, they can recover if buried in spiritual earth. Lu Changxing muttered to himself, realizing that for him, the golden armor bean mother was not to be used for transforming into a golden armor warrior for combat, but rather, to continually reproduce a labor force. In the future, when he established his own family, many tasks, such as the envisioned puppet factory, could be entrusted to the golden armor warriors produced by the spirit beans. I wonder if I will be able to draw something like the golden armor being mother again. Lu Changxing became even more interested in such Dao soldiers, and decided to check the bookstores in Qingyun Market later for information about Dao soldiers. After putting the golden armor being mother into his spiritual pet bag, Lu Changxing left the inn. He first visited 2 magic artifact shops and traded the artifacts he didn't need for spirit stones. In total, there were 4 supreme artifacts and 3 upper-grade artifacts. The quality of these artifacts was still quite good, and since they weren't used much, he sold them for 6,300 spirit stones. As for the 3 spiritual artifacts he acquired from the young man in the red robe, Lu Changxing chose not to sell them. Now that he had reached foundation establishment, it was only natural that he updated his artifacts. The other party's colorless flying sword was quite good, being a middle-grade spiritual artifact, so he kept it for his own use. Although the blood-colored scissors were somewhat worn, they were still usable. As for the red phoenix pearl, since it was the other party's life-bound spiritual artifact, its power would be significantly reduced if he used it, but considering it was a life-bound spiritual artifact and rather conspicuous, potentially recognized by acquaintances, Lu Changxing also chose not to sell it, planning to decide what to do with it later. Afterward, Lu Changxing inquired about the location of the Qingyun Commerce Guild. He changed his appearance again and headed towards the Qingyun Commerce Guild. For constructing the 7 luminaries heart lamp, he already had several of the common materials, but the rest were rarer spiritual materials, which were hard to find in ordinary shops. They could only be purchased from big commerce guilds and large shops. In addition to buying materials for the 7 luminaries heart lamp, Lu Changxing also intended to purchase a second-rank talisman brush and materials for drawing second-tier top-level supreme talismans. Chapter 323, The Army of Golden Armor Warriors. The way to enter Qingyun's sect at the peak of Qi refinement, he could only draw second-rank lower-quality talismans and barely manage middle-quality ones. Now that he had broken through the foundation establishment, he was almost capable of drawing supreme second-rank talismans. Naturally, he needed to draw some talismans for self-protection. Welcome to Qingyun Commerce Guild. May I know if the guest is here to buy or sell? As soon as Lu Changxing stepped into the Qingyun Commerce Guild, a beautiful female cultivator dressed in the standard Cheongsam uniform of the guild approached to serve him. Both buying and selling. Lu Changxing casually replied. After being invited to sit down and having tea promptly served, Lu Changxing took out a storage bag and placed it on the table, saying, "I want to sell these materials, please give me an estimate." "Please wait a moment, fellow Taoist." The female cultivator smiled politely and began to count and evaluate the materials in front of him. It wasn't easy to become a receptionist at Qingyun Commerce Guild. One not only needed to be a cultivator but also had to be adept at appraising materials. After a while, the female cultivator respectfully said, "Senior, I have counted the materials you wish to sell, and our purchase price is 3,391 spirit stones. May I know your opinion? If you need, I can list the purchase price of each item for you." The female cultivator crouched to the side, causing her figure-hugging Cheongsam to tighten and outline her exquisite curves, very tempting to the eye. "No need, that price will do." Lu Changxing nodded his head. He had also roughly estimated the value of these materials. The value was around 5,000 spirit stones. But value was just value. It was not guaranteed that he could sell them all on his own. Buying was also quite troublesome. In places like the Qingyun Commerce Guild, they typically bought at about 60 to 70% of the market value. "Alright, then I will finalize the price for the senior." The female cultivator took out her own storage bag and began placing items into it one by one. But she didn't rush to settle the payment in spirit stones and asked instead, "Earlier, the senior mentioned needing to buy as well. May I know what you wish to purchase? Take a look at these materials." Lu Changxing, without saying much, took out a list he had prepared. "Please wait a moment, senior." The female cultivator took the list and glanced at it, her eyes lighting up instantly. She realized it was a significant transaction. She quickly took out a jade scroll, looking up the inventory information for the materials on the list. "Senior, Regarding the materials you require, I just checked, and currently we have Xianxia sand, Tianlan silk, dragon blood soil, and celestial silver. However, we are currently out of 7-color copper and earth fire stone, but if the senior needs them, our Qingyun Commerce Guild can also procure them on your behalf. The female cultivator spoke, handing a jade scroll to Lu Changxing. The scroll displayed images of the various materials Lu Changxing intended to buy. Below them, there was information on inventory and price, along with descriptions. Xianxia sand, 1,000 spirit stones per 2. Tianlan silk, 250 spirit stones per strand. Dragon blood soil, 530 spirit stones per portion. Celestial silver, 100 spirit stones per 2. Looking at these prices, Lu Changxing couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. The price of a low-grade spiritual artifact was between 3,000 to 4,000 spirit stones. To forge his life-bound spiritual artifact, just a portion of the materials would cost nearly 10,000 spirit stones, which made him somewhat regretful. 5-2 of Xianxia sand, 9 strands of Tianlan silk, 2 of dragon blood soil, and 1 caddy of celestial silver. Lu Changxing sighed inwardly and spoke up. It just had to be said that the higher one's cultivation level, the greater the expenses. If it wasn't for me, Lu Changxing, being skilled in second-rank talisman making and occasionally receiving support from kind-hearted individuals, I really wouldn't be able to afford such expenditure. Very well, if the senior has no other needs, I will go fetch your purchases. The female cultivator spoke respectfully. Show me the second-rank talisman pens you have here. Lu Changxing continued. Second-rank talisman pen? Upon hearing this, the female cultivator expressed surprise and said, I didn't expect the senior to be a talisman master. I've been impolite. Immediately, she flipped through a jade scroll to the page detailing second-rank talisman pens. She introduced the conditions of several talisman pens to Lu Changxing. Second-rank lower-quality talisman pen, approximately 3,000 spirit stones. Second-rank middle-quality talisman pen, approximately 5,000 spirit stones. Second-rank high-quality talisman pen, approximately 10,000 spirit stones. Supreme second-rank talisman pen, approximately 15,000 spirit stones. TSK, that's really expensive. Seeing the prices on the scroll, Lu Changxing couldn't help but shake his head. He had previously bought a Supreme first-grade talisman pen for a total of 1,400 spirit stones. This Supreme second-rank talisman pen was more than 10 times more expensive. Get me a Supreme Qingyun second-rank talisman pen. Lu Changxing browsed briefly through the descriptions of the various talisman pens, choosing the most popular model here. 9,800 spirit stones. Originally, he had considered going all out and buying a Supreme second-rank talisman pen. This wouldn't only save him the trouble of changing pens later, but also make drawing Supreme second-rank talismans much more stable. He didn't expect a second-rank talisman pen to be so costly. Mainly because when Xianxia broke through to Foundation establishment, the outside spiritual energy wasn't enough, and he had to crush middle-grade spirit stones to provide her with nature's spiritual energy. It altogether consumed more than 80 of his middle-grade spirit stones. That is more than 8,000 spirit stones. So after selling his magic artifacts and materials today, leaving him with just over 9,000 spirit stones, he only had a little over 10,000 spirit stones left. Additionally, he still needed to purchase materials for drawing second-rank talismans. As you wish, senior, I will fetch it for you right now. Seeing that Lu Changxing was not only buying a great quantity of materials but also purchasing a Supreme second-rank talisman pen, the female cultivator knew she had encountered a major client and was very pleased, speaking respectfully. After all, as a receptionist, she did have a commission. Not in a hurry, Qingyun Commerce Guild should buy second-rank talismans too, right? Lu Changxing continued. Now that he had broken through to the Foundation establishment stage, the lower-quality second-rank talismans he possessed were not very useful to him anymore. He might consider selling some, exchanging them for spirit stones. After all, it's always wise to have some spirit stones on hand for emergencies. Chapter 324, The Army of Golden Armor Warriors, the way to enter Qingyun sect. It's impossible to spend all the spirit stones. Moreover, he planned to visit several other shops to see if they had the 7-colored copper and earth fire stone he needed. We certainly take that. The female cultivator nodded with a smile. Then she paused before continuing in a sweet, euphemistic tone. However, our Qingyun Commerce Guild only purchases premium talismans. If the talismans are of poor quality, we do not buy them. You can check the quality of this talisman. Lu Changsheng took out 10 second-rank lower-grade talismans. Please, senior, rest in our VIP room here. I, myself, do not understand talismans well, so I need to ask the manager to appraise them, said the female cultivator as she took the talismans with both hands. All right. Lu Changsheng nodded. He knew that these receptionists were just ordinary cultivators. Being able to recognize and appraise many spiritual materials was already quite commendable. Asking them to judge the quality of second-rank talismans might be asking too much. He followed the other party to the second-floor VIP room to wait. Before long, a spirited old man in his 50s with white hair appeared with the female cultivator in the VIP room. Who from the Qingyun Commerce Guild, seeing the exquisite quality of the talismans you wish to sell, I took the liberty of coming to meet you, the old man said politely as he made a salute to Lu Changsheng. You flatter me, Taoist Hu, Lu Changsheng responded, also making a slight salute. In that case, it seems that your guild is willing to purchase my talismans. Of course, with such quality talismans, the guild will buy as many as you have, and is willing to purchase at 75% of the market price, said Manager Hu cheerfully. 75%. Lu Changsheng nodded and said, Then I thank you, Manager Hu. He knew that the Qingyun Commerce Guild's purchase price for talismans was generally 60%. At most, they would go up to 70%. So offering 75% was already quite good. Besides the 10 talismans just now, I have another 15 here for Manager Hu to look at. Lu Changsheng took out another 15 second-rank lower-grade talismans and said, he had a total of 59 second-rank lower-grade talismans on him, but there was no rush to sell them all at once. Moreover, he felt that Manager Hu's visit was not just a simple courtesy call. Let me see. Manager Hu took the 15 talismans and carefully examined them, noting that they were all premium quality talismans. These 15 talismans, like the previous 10, would be 14,000 spirit stones at the market price. At 75%, our guild is willing to offer a purchase price of 7,900 spirit stones. I wonder what Taoist Han thinks. Manager Hu asked. No problem, thank you Manager Hu, Lu Changsheng nodded when he heard the offer. The price for these second-rank lower-grade talismans averaged around 400 spirit stones each. Although his high-quality premium talismans could fetch a higher price by an additional 10 or 20% on the market, the offered price was not unfair. Moreover, his cost per talisman was only 26 spirit stones, so a little less was still acceptable. I wonder if Taoist has any other needs? Manager Hu inquired. I need to purchase some talisman-making materials, Lu Changsheng said thoughtfully. Naturally, we have them, beer. Manager Hu, guessing Lu Changsheng's answer and confirming his speculation, smiled and instructed. The receptionist named Beer took out a jade scroll, selecting and showing Lu Changsheng the second-rank talisman-making materials. Afterward, Lu Changsheng purchased 30 portions of ordinary, advanced, and superior quality second-rank talisman paper and spiritual ink, costing a total of 5,280 spirit stones. I presume Taoist is a second-grade talisman master. If I may be so bold, are you part of any power? If not, would you be interested in becoming a guest elder of our Qingyun Commerce Guild? We are always on the lookout for talents like you, Manager Hu invited after Lu Changsheng had finished his purchases. This was also the reason he had come in person. Having seen the second-rank talismans earlier, he had discerned that Lu Changsheng's achievements on the talisman path were extraordinary. At the very least, he was a middle-grade second-grade talisman master. Now, seeing Lu Changsheng purchasing so many talisman crafting materials, his guess was confirmed, and he extended an invitation directly. Oh, may I know what responsibilities and benefits come with becoming a guest elder of your esteemed guild? Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng asked aloud. When this shopkeeper who had come over, he had guessed that his visit wasn't simply a courtesy call. It turned out he wanted to invite him to join the Commerce Guild. Originally, when he was at the Nine Dragons Market, making purchases for second-grade talisman crafting materials from the Qingyun Commerce Guild and Myriad Treasures Pavilion, he had also been asked about this matter. But as he hadn't revealed too much at that time, no managers approached him with inquiries. Receiving the invitation now, he couldn't help but be curious. He wanted to learn more about the responsibilities and treatment that came with joining the Qingyun Commerce Guild. If fellow Taoist is willing to become a guest elder of our Qingyun Commerce Guild, you would only need to craft a batch of talismans for our guild each month, or provide talismans urgently when our guild requires them. As for the benefits, not only is there a generous monthly salary, but fellow Taoist will also get an internal price and enjoy discounts when purchasing items from our Qingyun Commerce Guild. Furthermore, whatever materials you need, our Qingyun Commerce Guild can procure them for you. Moreover, our guild hosts a grand skills competition every year, where fellow Taoists can communicate with many peers in the same field, exchange insights, and grow together. Fellow Taoists should know that our Qingyun Commerce Guild is backed by the Qingyun sect. If fellow Taoist makes significant contributions to our guild, we have an internal recommendation quota from the Qingyun sect which can be used to refer fellow Taoist into the Qingyun sect. Within the sect, fellow Taoist can not only receive instruction from core elders but might even be favored by an elder and taken in as a disciple. Shopkeeper who began to speak slowly. Join the Qingyun sect? After hearing this, Lu Changsheng's eyebrows shot up. He roughly understood the biggest benefit of joining the Qingyun Commerce Guild now. Not only could he enjoy various benefits and treatment but also had the channel to enter the Qingyun sect. For many loose cultivators, being able to join an immortal sect like Qingyun sect at an older age was naturally a much sought-after opportunity. I see. Thank you, shopkeeper Hu, for informing me. However, I currently do not have any intention of joining other factions. I will need to consider it for a while, and if I have any inclination in this regard later on, I will trouble shopkeeper Hu then. Lu Changsheng slightly bowed with a hint of apology. In his view, joining the Qingyun Commerce Guild and having the backing of the Qingyun sect was not bad. Not only was it good to benefit from a powerful backer, but it would also be much more convenient to collect materials in the future. As for the responsibilities, if he only needed to craft a batch of talismans each month, it wouldn't be too difficult for him, who had nearly 100% success rate in talisman making. It would just mean spending a bit more time and effort, and being slightly inconvenienced. However, since his current identity was fake, it was naturally impossible for him to join the Qingyun Commerce Guild. Should he reveal himself to be a second-grade talisman master in the future, it would be worth considering. Of course, that is understandable. If Han fellow Taoist is interested, you can come and find me anytime, shopkeeper Hu said with a smile, not at all disappointed. Because such matters were quite normal. To have honed a skill to such a level, he was obviously invited many times already. It was possible he was currently serving in some capacity within a certain faction. How could he agree just because someone asked? What he needed to do was extend the invitation and leave a good impression. Hoping that when Lu Changsheng was inclined in this direction, he would consider their Qingyun Commerce Guild. Senior Han, here are your items. A total of 24,880 spirit stones, deducting the 11,291 spirit stones for the materials and talisman you sold, you need to pay 13,589 spirit stones. At this moment, the female cultivator receptionist brought over the items Lu Changsheng had purchased and asked him to check them. All right, there's no problem. Lu Changsheng checked the materials in the storage bag and nodded. Fellow Taoist Han, you can just pay 13,000, shopkeeper Hu said with a chuckle, rounding down the amount. Thank you, shopkeeper Hu. Lu Changsheng, realizing the show of goodwill, immediately expressed his thanks. He paid with spirit stones and then took his leave. After leaving the Qingyun Commerce Guild, Lu Changsheng went to an inn as usual to double-check his items. Although a big store like Qingyun Commerce Guild wouldn't usually do such things, one must always be cautious. Having confirmed there were no issues, Lu Changsheng changed his appearance and prepared to visit other shops to see if he could purchase the 7-colored copper and earth heart stone he needed. Chapter 325. The Concept of Dao Soldiers, Jiang Country's #1 Loose Cultivator _1. Finally, everything's gathered. As he stepped out of the 6th shop, Lu Changsheng let out a sigh of relief. At the Myriad Treasures Pavilion, he had purchased earth fire stones. But after asking around several shops, none had the 7-colored copper. Fortunately, luck was on his side. In this shop, for 2,000 spirit stones, he managed to acquire the last material needed for casting the 7 luminaries' heart lamp. Once I return to Qingzhou Mountain and condense the 7 luminaries' heart lamp, you'll be able to forge this life-bound spiritual artifact. Having gathered all the necessary materials, Lu Changsheng was in great spirits. After all, it would have been quite upsetting had he missed just one material. Now that I've broken through to Foundation Establishment, I should also buy some elixir medicines suitable for increasing cultivation level during the Foundation Establishment stage. Lu Changsheng thought to himself. If one wished to cultivate quickly, consuming medicinal pills was indispensable. Relying on personal cultivation alone, it would take 8 to 9 years to progress from the 1st level to the 2nd level of Foundation Establishment. But with enough elixir medicines and the aid of the 7 luminaries' heart lamp to refine the elixir toxicity and purify mana, it's estimated it would take just 2 to 3 years to reach the 2nd level. Immediately after, Lu Changsheng headed to the old and established Elixir Cauldron Pavilion to inquire about elixirs suitable for the Foundation Establishment stage. Senior, our shop has harmonizing energy elixirs and origin nurturing elixirs suitable for the Foundation Establishment stage. However, the origin nurturing elixirs are all sold out, leaving only 1 bottle of harmonizing energy elixir. If Senior is interested, you may pay a deposit and we will notify you once we restock. Upon hearing Lu Changsheng's inquiry about Foundation Establishment elixir medicines, the shop clerk immediately responded with respect. Only 1 bottle of harmonizing energy elixir? Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng felt somewhat disappointed. But he knew that, just like 2nd-rank talismans, most shops didn't stock many 2nd-rank elixir medicines. Unless one was acquainted with a 2nd-rank alchemist. Otherwise, it would be impossible to make large purchases. How many spirit stones for the harmonizing energy elixir? And do you have elixirs that increase cultivation level for the energy refinement late stage? Lu Changsheng continued to inquire. Senior, the harmonizing energy elixir is 1,200 spirit stones. For the energy refinement late stage cultivation enhancing elixirs, our shop currently has the energy refining powder, energy nurturing elixir, and the condensing energy elixir. After quoting the price, the clerk took out a jade scroll and began introducing Lu Changsheng to various elixir medicines suitable for the energy refinement late stage. These elixirs were also somewhat beneficial to Foundation Establishment cultivators. For example, the energy refining powder could increase the speed of refining nature's spiritual energy. The energy nurturing elixir could nourish spiritual energy and accelerate its circulation within the body. However, relatively speaking, the effects of these elixirs on Foundation Establishment cultivators were quite ordinary. Apart from the harmonizing energy elixir, Lu Changsheng also purchased the store's remaining 3 bottles of energy nurturing elixir and 1 bottle of condensing energy elixir. In total, he spent 2,200 spirit stones. Just as Lu Changsheng had finished paying the spirit stones and was about to leave, Little Yu, has the customer who reserved the 3 Suns elixir not come to claim it yet? Shopkeeper, that customer has not yet arrived. 3 days ago, I sent Xiao Wu to contact the customer at the provided address, but still couldn't reach them. The shopkeeper came downstairs and asked one of the employees, 3 Suns elixir? Upon hearing this conversation, Lu Changsheng paused mid-step. He was familiar with this elixir. A 2nd-rank spirit pill, derived from the idea of 3 suns bring prosperity. After consumption, it could not only increase cultivation level, saving years of arduous cultivation, but also eradicate any hidden illnesses or risks within a cultivator's body, as if shone upon by the bright sun, dissolving them all away. It has a somewhat miraculous effect on cultivators at the perfection stage of energy refinement advancing to foundation establishment, even humorously dubbed the Junior Foundation Establishment Elixir. Lu Changxing knew of the Three Suns elixir and had initially thought to prepare one for himself. However, this elixir was considered a rather rare second-rank elixir medicine. He had visited several shops initially and had not managed to purchase it. Now, hearing this conversation, Lu Changxing couldn't help but entertain the thought of buying it. He was already at foundation establishment and didn't need it for himself, but he could buy it as a gift for his wife, Lu Miaoge. Currently, Lu Miaoge's cultivation level was at the 8th level of energy refinement. It was estimated she would need another 2 to 3 years to break through to the 9th level. By then, Lu Miaoge would be in her 40s. Although at that age, if one could reach the perfection stage of energy refinement and attempt foundation establishment before 60, as one grows older, the challenge of achieving foundation establishment grows greater. Naturally, he hoped his wife could cultivate to the perfection stage of energy refinement sooner. Moreover, despite Lu Miaoge having recovered from the previous assassination attempt, it was uncertain if any hidden issues remained. Possessing a Three Suns elixir would not only increase cultivation level, but also eliminate any hidden risks in her body, granting Lu Miaoge a greater hope of successfully reaching foundation establishment. Shopkeeper, since the original buyer has not come to claim the pill, is this Three Suns elixir still for sale? If you are willing to sell, how much would it cost? Lu Changxing respectfully inquired, looking at the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper was slightly surprised by the question, but immediately after hearing from the clerk that Lu Changxing had just spent over 2,000 spirit stones and might be a foundation establishment cultivator, he cheerfully said, "If Taoist friend is interested, our shop naturally is willing to sell." The Three Suns elixir is priced at 3,800 spirit stones, the shopkeeper declared. Agreed, I'll take the Three Suns elixir, Lu Changxing said promptly, nodding. The price wasn't cheap, but it wasn't very expensive either. After all, the prices in large shops tend to be a little higher. Besides, precious elixirs often fluctuate in price. Shopkeeper, I don't have enough spirit stones on me, could I offset the cost with talismans? Lu Changxing took out 3 talismans and asked. He didn't know exactly how many spirit stones he had, as he had not counted them. But it was roughly between 3,000 and 4,000. In such circumstances, it's only right to keep some spirit stones on hand for emergencies. Second-rank lower-quality talismans? As the shopkeeper of Elixir Cauldron Pavilion, he naturally had an extraordinary eye. He took the talismans, looked them over for a moment, and said politely, "Second-rank talismans can indeed be used for offsetting the cost, but our shop can only accept them at 60% of the market price." Chapter 326. The Concept of Dao Soldiers, Jiang Country's #1 Loose Cultivator. Alright, a 40% discount it is. Lu Changxing nodded slightly upon hearing this, agreeing to the discounted price. He couldn't possibly run to the Qingyun Commerce Guild now to ask if they were still purchasing talismans. Immediately, he took out 10 second-rank talismans, deducted 2,500 spirit stones, and paid an additional 1,300 spirit stones. I wonder when he'll be able to draw a second-rank alchemy skill. Otherwise, not only are second-rank elixir medicines hard to purchase, but their prices are also high. The little money I painstakingly earn all goes into this. Tucking away the Three Suns elixir, Lu Changxing left the store and couldn't help but think to himself. Currently, his talismans were yielding a 20-fold profit. Among the 4 mainstream skills of cultivation, the profit margins for elixir medicines are only higher than those for talisman making. It isn't just about making money that simple. He also thought that with alchemy skills of his own, he wouldn't have to worry about elixir medicines. Not just alchemy, but formation skills are also needed. If I want to establish my own family, it's essential to have someone in the clan who understands formations. Otherwise, if a family has to rely on others for formations, they would be oblivious to any loopholes or defects. Lu Changxing considered in his mind. He felt that the road to establishing a family on his own seemed quite long and difficult. Next, he'll find a bookstore to ask about Dao soldiers, and that should be enough. Lu Changxing didn't dwell on this. He prepared to find a bookstore to learn about Dao soldiers. After looking around, Lu Changxing saw a 10,000 Laws bookstore. He recognized it as a shop selling cultivation technique classics. He went in and inquired about books on Dao soldiers. Dao soldiers? May I inquire which aspect of Dao soldiers you're interested in learning about? The shop owner asked with some surprise upon hearing Lu Changxing's intention. Regarding Dao soldiers, I've only heard a little and am quite interested, so I want to understand more in detail. Any classics on this subject will do. Lu Changxing said so. Information about Dao soldiers is not widely known in the cultivation world, and there are very few classics on the subject. I happen to know a bit about Dao soldiers. If you're willing to pay 100 spirit stones for tea, I'm willing to enlighten you and give a brief introduction, the shop owner said with a smile. People like him who run bookstores not only sell cultivation technique classics, they also possess a wealth of knowledge about many aspects of the cultivation world. If you can resolve my queries, naturally, I am willing to offer the 100 spirit stones for tea. Lu Changxing took out 50 spirit stones and spoke. At the Nine Dragons market, he knew that the monopoly on high-end knowledge in this world was severe. The absence of related classics on Dao soldiers also indicated that the subject is advanced and known by few. Therefore, 100 spirit stones for tea wasn't considered steep. In some shops selling information, a single piece of news could cost thousands to tens of thousands of spirit stones. You are straightforward. Seeing this, the shop owner smiled. He invited Lu Changxing to sit down, poured a cup of spiritual tea, and began to talk about information related to Dao soldiers. Actually, Dao soldier is just a general term. Like puppets, demon beasts, corpses, ghost soldiers, artifact spirits, and even cultivators can all be referred to as some type of Dao soldier. However, being called a Dao soldier often means having a certain quantity of the same kind, much like the soldiers and generals of the secular world. The shop owner took a sip of his tea and said, broadly speaking, Dao soldiers can be classified into 3 types: domesticated soldiers, refined soldiers, and magic soldiers. Lu Changxing also took a sip of his spiritual tea, nodded slightly, and signaled for the other party to continue. The first type, domesticated soldiers, is as the name suggests. Humans or demon beasts are raised as Dao soldiers. However, this kind of domestication is not ordinary breeding. It involves using some cultivation technique, secret technique, or soldier training method to raise cultivators or demon beasts as Dao soldiers. These Dao soldiers possess not only cultivation level and mana but are also capable of fighting and managing armies, as well as arranging formations. Many formations don't require human manipulation, but the most formidable formations still need many people to control them. That's where the role of Dao soldiers becomes evident. I've heard that some profound techniques for raising domesticated soldiers enable the resulting Dao soldiers not only to form great formations but also to enhance their cultivation level and strength via the formations. The shop owner took another sip of tea, slowly introducing the topic. People can also be raised as Dao soldiers? Lu Changxing was somewhat surprised to hear this. All beings have a spirit. It's not strange for us to be raised as Dao soldiers. The shop owner chuckled, finishing his cup of tea. He continued, both the secular world and the cultivation world have practices of training loyal warriors. You can consider these as a type of raised Dao soldiers as well. However, raising Dao soldiers usually involves hundreds or thousands of them, and it often takes decades or even centuries to raise a force. That's why few powers choose to raise humans as Dao soldiers. The shop owner refilled his tea. Why is that? Lu Changxing asked. Because raising a force of Dao soldiers not only consumes time and energy but also resources. Only large powers have the ability to raise Dao soldiers. Raising humans as Dao soldiers, on one hand, is against the natural order. Moreover, the resources required for raising humans as Dao soldiers are too vast, and by the time the Dao soldiers are completed, human lifespans are too short. Compared to humans, demon beasts not only live longer but also consume far fewer resources, making them ideal for becoming domesticated soldiers. That's why if a power is to raise Dao soldiers, they would undoubtedly choose to raise demon beasts as Dao soldiers instead of humans. The shop owner spoke, refilling Lu Changsheng's tea as well. I see. Lu Changsheng had a realization upon hearing this. Chapter 327. The concept of Dao soldiers, Jiang country's #1 loose cultivator. Regarding these domesticated Dao soldiers, there was now a general understanding. It involved using some kind of cultivation technique to train humans or demon beasts into a kind of death warriors. But these death warriors not only possessed high combat effectiveness, but they could also form battle formations. Whether in magical combat against enemies or other matters, they were extraordinary. May I ask, fellow Daoist, what about refined soldiers and magic soldiers? What's the situation with them? Lu Changsheng sipped his tea and continued to inquire. As for refined soldiers, for example, certain puppets with unique characteristics, spirits of magical treasures, or those created through techniques such as corpse refinement and ghost nurturing, any Dao soldiers artificially made are collectively known as refined soldiers. As for magic soldiers, they are mostly magical treasures capable of cultivating and nurturing Dao soldiers. For instance, in the demon path there is an extremely famous magical treasure called the Myriad Soul Banner, which, after killing human or demon beasts, can refine their souls into the banner, turning them into fierce ghosts. Such are known as magic soldiers. What most of us refer to as Dao soldiers generally means those that have been cultivated, and the cultivators and forces that can cultivate Dao soldiers in the cultivation world are truly few and far between, which is why so few people know of Dao soldiers. The shopkeeper lightly sipped his tea, smiling as he spoke. Domesticated soldiers? Refined soldiers? Magic soldiers? Lu Changsheng, upon hearing about the 3 types of Dao soldiers, nodded thoughtfully as if gaining a rough concept of them. So with that said, which category of Dao soldiers does my golden armor bean mother fall into? Lu Changsheng felt that his golden armor bean mother didn't seem to fit into any of the 3 types of Dao soldiers the shopkeeper mentioned. It was somewhat like a domesticated soldier, but also somewhat like a magic soldier. He remembered the system had introduced it as a spirit plant type Dao soldier. It seemed to lean more towards the domesticated soldier type. However, he didn't pay it much mind. The shopkeeper was only a Qi refinement peak cultivator after all. His understanding of Dao soldiers was bound to be limited and couldn't possibly encompass everything. Besides, rewards from the system couldn't be measured by ordinary standards. May I ask, fellow Daoist, in our Jiang country cultivation realm, are there any forces that have Dao soldiers? Lu Changsheng continued to inquire. Within the 4 great immortal sects of our Jiang country, the spirit-taming sect is renowned for taming spiritual beasts, so they definitely have domesticated Dao soldiers. But whether the Heavenly Sword sect, Qingyun sect, and Wuxia sect have Dao soldiers, I really do not know. In our Jiang country's 3 great immortal cities, the Azure Phoenix Immortal of the Azure Phoenix Immortal City has domesticated a force of Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers. Rumor has it, 200 years ago, Azure Phoenix Immortal, with the power of 500 Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers, both shocked Jiang country and established Azure Phoenix Immortal City, hence earning the title of Jiang country's #1 loose cultivator. The shopkeeper spoke. Azure Phoenix Immortal, Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers. Lu Changsheng was somewhat surprised by these words. Naturally aware of Azure Phoenix Immortal City, he had heard of the great reputation of the Azure Phoenix Immortal. Yet, he did not know that this Azure Phoenix Immortal made a name for himself by relying on a force of Dao soldiers to establish Azure Phoenix Immortal City. Indeed, rumor has it that Azure Phoenix Immortal back in the day was just in the initial stage of core formation, but with 500 Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers, he was able to go head-to-head with those in the late stage of core formation. The shopkeeper spoke of Azure Phoenix Immortal with a look of admiration and longing in his eyes. The Azure Phoenix Immortal, as a loose cultivator without any backing, yet managed to condense a true elixir. Furthermore, he established Azure Phoenix Immortal City, a sacred site for loose cultivators, on the border between Jiang country and Yu country, naturally earning the worship of numerous loose cultivators and setting a goal for them to strive for. As expected, those who have made a name for themselves in the cultivation world, especially loose cultivators, all fit the mold of chosen children of destiny. Lu Changxing felt that this Azure Phoenix Immortal was indeed formidable after hearing these words. At his current state of early foundation establishment, he felt he could barely compete with those at the late stage of foundation establishment. The gap in strength between stages of core formation would be even greater. Yet this Azure Phoenix Immortal was able to confront someone in the late stage of core formation during his initial stage. However, Azure Phoenix Immortal's Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers are also amongst the top ranks of the many Dao soldiers. As far as I know, one of the three great cultivation families in our Jiang country, the beast-taming Su family, has also domesticated a force of Water Serpent Dao soldiers and Fire Raven Dao soldiers, but they are far from matching the Azure Phoenix Dao soldiers of the Azure Phoenix Immortal. The shopkeeper continued to introduce the Dao soldiers. The beast-taming Su family, Water Serpent Dao soldiers, Fire Raven Dao soldiers. Lu Changxing nodded slightly upon hearing this. He had heard of this beast-taming Su family, one of Jiang country's three great cultivation families. With a nascent soul immortal sitting in residence, it was a true cultivation family. It is not at all comparable to small cultivation families like Qingzhu's Lu family or Red Leaf Valley's Chen family. Unexpectedly, this family not only has a nascent soul ancestor presiding but also cultivates Dao soldiers. However, he discovered that the store owners spoke only of domesticating Dao soldiers. There was no mention of refining soldiers or magic soldiers. Right away, Lu Changxing inquired about refining soldiers and magic soldiers. Dao soldiers are indeed rare and difficult to cultivate. Compared to domesticated soldiers, refining soldiers have more associations with the heretical path, and naturally, they are less seen in Jiang country. Centuries ago, the royal family of Yu country, which bordered our Jiang country, secretly stirred up successive wars to select a batch of battle-hardened soldiers and refine a type of Dao soldier. When the several great immortal sects of Yu country learned of this, they directly exterminated the entire royal family. As for magic soldiers, they are even more exceedingly rare. Apart from the infamous myriad soul banner of the demon path, I've heard that the Yiming Ghost sect of Jin Kingdom has a treasured artifact known as the Myriad Ghost's Blood Pool, which uses the blood of myriad spirits for nourishment and can foster a type of Dao soldier. The shop owner said this and then finished another cup of tea. After speaking, he also turned to Lu Changxing and said, "Fellow Daoist, this is all I know about Dao soldiers. Thank you for enlightening me and broadening my horizons." Lu Changxing immediately cupped his hands in thanks. He handed over the remaining 50 spirit stones for the tea and then took his leave. These Dao soldiers really do sound impressive. If I could draw a magical treasure capable of nurturing Dao soldiers from the system lottery, perhaps I could cultivate my own Dao soldiers, Lu Changxing thought to himself. Having understood roughly the three types of Dao soldiers, he felt magic soldiers were the best. Whether it was domesticated soldiers or refined soldiers, they were too difficult in terms of time and effort. Only magic soldiers, which could be nurtured and cultivated using a magical treasure, were the best option. It was also the most likely for him to obtain directly through the system lottery. Without further thought, Lu Changxing found an inn to disguise himself in new clothes and then quickly left Qingyun Market. Quite smart to know to change his appearance and disguise. But daring to compete with me, Meng Yibai, for a woman, he must pay the price. At the entrance and exit of the marketplace, atop the second-floor balcony, a young man in his 20s, bursting with vigor, sensed something and stood up, looking outwards. In his hand, a golden hamster appeared, pointing out Lu Changxing, who had just left the marketplace, from the crowd. Lu Changxing, after stepping out of the marketplace, did not ride the iron feather eagle. He also did not control a flying artifact. Instead, he attempted to fly by controlling the air. After all, the most significant feature of a breakthrough from qi refining to foundation establishment is the ability to fly through the air without relying on flying artifacts. Now that he had broken through to foundation establishment, it was natural for him to try out and experience it. With a movement of his mental spirit, Lu Changxing naturally rose into the air and began to fly through the air. Many cultivators were coming and going next to Qingyun Market. Seeing Lu Changxing flying, they all gave way, showing envy and respect. Even in large marketplaces like Qingyun Market, energy refining cultivators are more common. Seeing a cultivator flying through the air, they naturally understood he was a foundation establishment great cultivator, and they didn't dare to offend him. Because if this great cultivator was in a bad mood and felt they were in the way, a simple slap could kill them without anywhere to seek justice. The reason energy refining cultivators cannot fly is that their spiritual power is insufficient to support their bodies, and they need to rely on flying artifacts. But after breaking through to foundation establishment, one undergoes a profound transformation, shedding the mortal coil, and the spiritual energy within transforms into mana, becoming more than 10 times more robust, enabling the body to lift off and fly through the air. Lu Changxing tried out flying and understood the principle behind it. Immediately, he descended from the air, released the iron feather eagle, and flew towards Qingzhou Mountain. Even though foundation establishment cultivators can fly through the air, they cannot do so for long distances without incurring some consumption. Therefore, it's still preferable to travel by mount or artifact. Meanwhile, Meng Yibai left Qingyun Market and released a palm-sized golden hamster from his spirit beast bag. Which direction did he go? He fed it an elixir medicine and spoke faintly. Chirp, chirp, chirp. The golden hamster nibbled on the elixir and immediately pointed in one direction. Chapter 328, Sword Cultivator Duel, Who Killed My Grandson? _1, Dreams of Dust, I cannot awaken alone. Atop the Qingyun platform, my true self is shown. Yin and Yang, 5 elements, all are clear, forming a jade platform to establish the Tao foundation. I walk the great Tao alone, not of my own will, free in the mortal world, prosperity spans myriad ages. Humans are not heartless like grass and trees, I cut down the mortal body, not the heart. Lu Changxing stood with his hands behind his back, atop the iron feather eagle, his blue robe flapping in the wind, reciting the settling poem he had composed to himself. After flying for several hundred miles, Lu Changxing suddenly sensed a fierce aura behind him, rushing towards him like lightning. Confronted with this ferocious aura, Lu Changxing's face darkened slightly, his mind alert. After all, having been in the cultivation world for so many years, he was quite experienced. Having just left the marketplace and encountering this, he couldn't help but be cautious. With past experience to guide him, Lu Changxing immediately stood in the air on his flying artifact, and he retracted the iron feather eagle, a mere means of transportation, into his spiritual pet bag. The next moment, Lu Changxing saw a golden escape light, fast like a shooting star, tearing through the air as it charged ferociously toward him. Is it him? As the escape light drew near, Lu Changxing immediately recognized a young man about 24 or 25 years old, dressed in a golden robe, riding a flying shuttle. It was the same young man he had seen in the Qingyun market when Xianxia had emerged from the cave dwelling with him, Meng Yibai. Lu Changxing had guessed then that the other might hold pursuit intentions towards Xianxia and, upon seeing the close interaction between him and Xianxia, may harbor jealousy or something of the sort. He had changed his appearance for this very reason. Yet, despite his many disguises and altered appearances, this man had fixed his sights on him and was coming directly to assassinate him. Swoosh! Meng Yibai approached Lu Changxing with a chilling expression, not uttering a word. A dazzling golden sword rainbow slashed towards Lu Changxing, sharp and swift. Pft! Lu Changxing, well prepared, raised his right hand leisurely. The 7 luminaries' sword light surged forth, cleaving the air and shattering the golden sword rainbow. Who are you, and why do you attack me out of the blue? Lu Changxing called out, looking at Meng Yibai before him. If it were an ordinary robber cultivator, he naturally wouldn't waste words with them. But having chatted with Xianxia, he knew the young man was not only a disciple of Qingyun sect but also had an elder who was a false core immortal. If possible, Lu Changxing really didn't want to make an enemy of him. After all, to kill someone like that would likely invite trouble. Moreover, Lu Changsheng also wanted to know how the other could see through his disguises and lock onto his trail. Indeed, you have some skill. Just established your foundation, and you can break my sword qi. As for why I attack you, I think you are well aware of the reason in your heart. Meng Yibai sneered. He stood tall on the flying shuttle, like a pike piercing the heavens, proud and sharp. I truly don't know where I have offended you? Lu Changsheng put on an expression of a wry smile. Since you don't know, then take your doubts with you to the grave. Meng Yibai did not speak further, coldly shouted, formed a spell with his hands, his aura became fierce, causing a sound of golden resonance in the void. A splendid gold flying sword appeared. Countless golden runes flowed along the sword body, and with sword qi that crisscrossed, it launched a sharp attack on Lu Changsheng. Sigh, it seems there's no room for talk. Lu Changsheng, seeing the approaching golden flying sword, his expression solemnly changed, and stopped talking. Knowing this man's domineering and arrogant nature and the jealousy and murderous intent he held, he was simply unwilling to talk further. Since that's the case, let's see whose flying sword is sharper. Lu Changsheng said coldly. He wasn't to be messed with. And having just completed his foundation establishment, he was also eager to test his own abilities. He smacked his storage bag and a blood-colored pair of scissors appeared. With a surge of mana, they transformed into a blood-colored flood dragon, roaring ferociously at the golden flying sword. Meanwhile, a pale white flying sword appeared in front of him. Sword Shadow Dividing Light Technique. Lu Changsheng formed a spell with 2 hands, and rainbow lights were infused into the flying sword. The pale white flying sword trembled fiercely, and 7 colors of treasured light flowed as it created 2 identical flying swords. The next moment, another 2 identical flying swords appeared. In total, 8 flying swords formed before Lu Changsheng. The 7 Luminaries' Great Freedom Sword Scripture's 2nd level not only has the divine skill, the 7 Luminaries' Heart Lamp, which can create a life-bound spiritual artifact, it also has 2 spell divine skills. The first spell is known as the Sword Shadow Dividing Light Technique. When facing an enemy, this technique can create up to 8 sword shadows identical to the actual flying sword. The sword shadows can not only confound the enemy's sight, but each also possesses 30% of the original's power. The second spell is named the Shimmering Shadow Condensation Sword Technique. After deploying the Sword Shadow Dividing Light Technique and creating several sword shadows, all shadows can be converged into the flying sword for the strongest slash. An average beginner who practices the Sword Shadow Dividing Light Technique can at most create 1 or 2 sword shadows. But Lu Changsheng is thoroughly familiar with the 7 Luminaries' Great Freedom Sword Scripture, requiring no time-consuming practice. Additionally, possessing the Profound Origin Bead, creating many sword shadows without worrying about excessive mana consumption is of no concern. You're a sword cultivator too. Meng Yibai, upon seeing Lu Changsheng's completely formidable presence, as if he had transformed into a different person, using the technique of division and shadow, expressed surprise. Cultivators can roughly be divided into the Scholarly Cultivator faction and the Martial Cultivator faction. The Scholarly Cultivator faction primarily obtains cultivation resources through production and trade. The Martial Cultivator faction primarily obtains cultivation resources through battle and plunder. Sword cultivators are a classic example within the Martial Cultivator faction. They are known for their straightforwardness, characteristically having formidable combat abilities and sharp techniques in battle. This was why, seeing Lu Changsheng with Xianxia, he felt displeasure in his heart, harboring a grudge, his thoughts troubled. He decided to directly take Lu Changsheng's life. Chapter 329. Sword Cultivator Duel, Who Killed My Grandson? Since that's the case, let me show you the true capabilities of a sword cultivator. Meng Yibai's hands formed seals, and the golden flying sword suddenly let out a clear hum, emitting streaks of sword qi. The sword qi swept through like a storm, causing the blood-red flood dragon to wail and its body to dim. Go! Lu Changsheng's expression remained unchanged as the 9 flying swords in front of him shot out simultaneously. 3 headed towards the golden flying sword, and 6 towards Meng Yibai. Meng Meng Yibai watched the approaching flying swords with a slight frown. He found it difficult to distinguish the real from the illusionary among the flying swords sent by Lu Changsheng. His expression did not change, and he showed no panic. His eyebrows raised like swords, and with a slap to his danton, he spat out a gleaming sword bead. This sword bead was round and glinted like a golden core, rotating around him and forming a net of sword qi. The sword bead, round in form yet embodying the intent of the sword, combined hardness with softness. Sharp enough to cut through metal like mud, and soft enough to coil around one's finger, its power far surpassed that of other flying swords of the same level. Furthermore, this sword bead was his life-bound spiritual artifact, possessing terrifying power. Clang, clang, clang. The 6 illusionary flying swords clashed against the net of the sword bead, sparking and ringing like metal striking against metal. Indeed, the sword bead was extraordinary, preventing Lu Changsheng's illusionary flying swords from breaking through its defense and even nicking the blades. I have only recently reached foundation establishment and my resources are insufficient. Many techniques have not caught up. To avoid any accidents, I must conclude this battle quickly. After a brief exchange, Lu Changsheng had a rough estimate of Meng Yibai's strength. His cultivation level appeared to be in the middle stage of foundation establishment. However, with the profound origin bead by his side, his mana was not weaker than that of a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator. In fact, in terms of the amount of mana, he was even slightly superior. In a battle of equals, he naturally did not fear his opponent. But since the opponent was a disciple of the Immortal sects and had a false core Immortal as a senior, it was certain he had many tricks and means of preservation, so a swift victory was best. Your so-called sword cultivator abilities are just this. Taste my sword. Shimmering shadow condensation sword technique. Lu Changsheng formed seals with his hands, and the mana in his body surged like a river, with the mana within his danshan's profound origin bead rapidly circulating. This caused the 8 illusionary flying swords to tremble violently and shine brilliantly. Subsequently, they transformed into streaks of 7-colored rainbow light, merging into the pristine white flying sword, which expanded greatly, transforming into a giant sword over 3 meters long. Slash! Lu Changsheng pointed like a sword and commanded the flying sword to cut down. The giant sword rose, with 7 colors of divine light swirling around it, and an endless surge of fierce and chilling sword qi seemed ready to extinguish all vitality as it slashed towards Meng Yibai with astounding momentum. Clang, clang, clang. Under the terrifying onslaught of the 7-colored giant sword, the golden flying sword let out a distressed cry as though it couldn't bear the pressure. How is this possible? How can you, a cultivator who has just broken through to the foundation establishment, have the ability to use such techniques, to have such power? Meng Yibai looked at the 7-colored giant sword, his eyelid twitching uncontrollably as shock took over his expression. As a sword cultivator, he was already considered unbeaten among his peers. Thus, he had not regarded Lu Changsheng, who had only just broken through foundation establishment, as a threat. Earlier, Lu Changsheng's shimmering shadow technique had merely made him acknowledge that Lu was an impressive talent. No wonder he had caught the eye of a prodigy like Xianxia. But now this technique was beyond what mere talent could account for. Or rather, this was definitely not a technique that a cultivator who had just broken through foundation establishment should have. Lu Changsheng's expression was indifferent, and he didn't reply, intent on slaying Meng Yibai with one sword. This youth has such astonishing methods. He must have obtained an unparalleled sword cultivation inheritance. Even if it costs me, it will be worth it to slay him. Meng Yibai's body burst with sword qi, and he took out a large tortoise shell to block the attack from the giant sword. The golden sword bead, after forming a heaven-covering sword qi net, suddenly burst forth in a flourish of sharp light, tearing through the air as it aimed for Lu Changsheng. Simultaneously, a blue talisman appeared in his hand, glowing and pulsing with energy. Talisman treasure. Lu Changsheng immediately noticed Meng Yibai's action. He recognized the blue talisman in his hand as a talisman treasure. Indeed, befitting a disciple of the Immortal sects, talisman treasures seemed to be standard issue. Previously Xianxia had a talisman treasure by her side, and now so did this person. Go! Lu Changxing did not bring out his talisman treasure, the golden light brick, to counterattack. His golden light brick magical treasure had limited remaining power and was not suitable for prolonged use. He slapped his storage bag and released a top-grade shield magic artifact and his second-rank puppet to block the sword bead. Next, he channeled a continuous flow of mana into the seven-colored giant sword, pushing its power to the extreme, making it overwhelmingly powerful. Crack! In that moment, the tortoise shell magic artifact immediately showed a crack. Not good. Meng Yibai did not expect Lu Changsheng's assault to be so aggressive. His own tortoise shell was a low-grade spiritual artifact. Yet, it seemed so fragile against the onslaught of the giant sword. Seeing Lu Changxing also had a second-rank puppet, he had no choice but to call his sword bead back to defend. Sword chi burst forth, forming a spiraling net of sword chi in the sky, continuing to block the onslaught of the seven-colored giant sword as he sought time to activate his talisman treasure. Within a few breaths, Meng Yibai activated the blue talisman treasure. With a clear sound, the talisman treasure transformed into a small, water-like flowing blue jade ruler. The jade ruler radiated a dazzling light in the air. Just like Lu Changsheng's previous pristine white flying sword, it split in 2, then 4, and then 8, creating more and more jade rulers. In no time, Meng Yibai's front was covered with a multitude of blue jade rulers, totaling over 100. These jade rulers were neatly arranged, forming a barrier in front of the seven-colored giant sword. Go! Meng Yibai formed seals with his hands, directing the sword bead, which was still clashing with the giant sword, to transform into a golden ray of light and strike towards Lu Changxing. Chapter 330, Sword Cultivator Duel, Who Killed My Grandson? Simultaneously, a series of blue jade rulers shot towards Lu Changxing. Although his talisman treasure was quite ordinary, it excelled in both offense and defense. As a sword cultivator, once you start defending, it's the beginning of defeat. Lu Changsheng's expression remained calm as he spoke lightly, his words aimed to influence the mental spirit of his opponent. With his divine sense, he manipulated the magical shield and the second-rank puppet to rush forward to the sword bead for defense. At the same time, his hand sliced through the air like a blade, unleashing sword lights towards the blue jade rulers. He saw several blue jade rulers disintegrate under his 7 luminaries' sword lights, giving him a rough idea of the ruler's might. Instantly, a talisman appeared in his hand. Earlier, from the hands of the red-robed youth, he had obtained 7 second-rank supreme talismans. Among them were 4 attack talismans. Second-rank supreme talisman, Thunder Fire Immaculate Talisman. Boom boom boom, Lu Changsheng's talisman was activated, transforming into endless celestial thunder and earth fire, sweeping towards the overwhelming tide of jade rulers with an astonishing momentum, causing a furious barrage. The myriad of jade rulers, already struggling to withstand the 7-colored giant sword, started to tremble wildly, shattering and then splitting anew. Go! Seeing his second-rank puppet fall back step by step in front of the sword bead and suffer damage all over, Lu Changxing immediately reactivated the blood-red scissors, transforming them into a blood-colored flood dragon to charge at the golden sword bead. After all, repairing the puppet afterwards would not only cost money but also time. Little guy, keep an eye on him. Lu Changxing released the 6-winged golden silkworm from his spiritual pet bag. Though the 6-winged golden silkworm only had late first-grade strength for now, as long as the opponent wasn't a body cultivator, hiding in the dark, it could still deliver an unexpected strike. Damn it. He's just a cultivator who recently broke through to Foundation establishment. Where does he get such profound mana to support these techniques? Meng Yibai felt his mana rapidly draining from within, his complexion exceedingly unsightly. With his strength at the 5th layer of Foundation establishment, his mana was swiftly depleting, almost exhausted. Lu Changxing, however, was a cultivator who had just broken through Foundation establishment, with less than half his own mana. Yet, while using such terrifying divine skills and techniques like the 7-colored giant sword, he could still nonchalantly cast other spells and activate spiritual artifacts, which was utterly beyond Meng's comprehension. Crack! Just at that moment, a crisp sound echoed. Hovering in midair, the tortoise shell filled with cracks finally shattered completely, allowing the myriad jade rulers to break and divide continuously under the seven-colored giant sword. No, there's something wrong with this kid, something seriously wrong. He must have some sort of artifact on him that increases and stores mana. Otherwise, having just broken through Foundation establishment, it shouldn't be so exaggerated. Seeing Lu Changxing showing no signs of mana depletion and launching yet another talisman with explosive force, Meng Yibai's face turned extremely sour. Making a snap decision in his mind, he prepared to flee. Sword cultivators may value a relentless advance and unobstructed thoughts, but they are not fools. Knowing that where there's life, there's hope, there's no need for a bitter struggle to the death. Meng Yibai's mana surged throughout his body, fully activating his talisman treasure to fend off the terrifying assault of the giant sword. Meanwhile, he recalled the blood-colored flood dragon and the dimly lit second-rank puppet sword bead to his side. Lu Changxing, witnessing this act, instantly knew something was wrong. His blood-colored scissors and second-rank puppet were no match for the sword bead. The question was whether he would break the opponent's talisman treasure first, or if the opponent's sword bead would destroy his second-rank puppet and blood-colored scissors first. But now, the opponent was withdrawing the offensive, which clearly indicated a problem. Could he be thinking of fleeing? Lu Changsheng's heart skipped a beat, realizing that the other might be planning an escape. Otherwise, as a sword cultivator, to abandon offense and focus solely on defense in these circumstances was indeed illogical. Without hesitation, Lu Changxing ceased to conserve his resources. He took out his talisman treasure, the golden light brick. Although this golden light brick talisman treasure wasn't very powerful, it had the effect of suppressing the heavens and the earth, making it difficult for one to break free and hard to escape. Now that Lu Changxing had broken through to the Foundation establishment stage, he could activate his talisman treasure much faster than in the Qi refinement realm. In just a short time, the talisman in his hand soared into the sky, radiating golden light. A talisman treasure. Meng Yibai's expression drastically changed upon seeing this. He hadn't expected Lu Changxing to still possess a talisman treasure, hidden until now. In that moment, he could no longer care about his life-bound sword pellet. He instantly propelled the flying shuttle beneath him, transforming into a streak of golden light to flee without looking back. But part of the golden light brick talisman treasure's power had already manifested. Golden light shone in all directions, as if the might of an ancient divine mountain pressed down with a rumbling force, causing his body to feel suddenly heavy and his mana sluggish. The six-winged golden silkworm, concealed in the dark, struck at that very moment, lunging out like a golden flash. What is this? Despite being a Foundation establishment great cultivator, Meng Yibai acutely sensed the incoming six-winged golden silkworm, his mana erupting around him to form a protective aura. Clang! The six-winged golden silkworm slammed into the shield, emitting a sound of metal clashing, unable to penetrate. Boom boom boom. At that moment, the myriad blue jade rulers lacking Meng Yibai's mana support began to shatter under the giant sword. Lu Changxing immediately led his second-rank puppet to chase after Meng Yibai. Fellow Taoist, if you cease this pursuit and let me go, I swear upon my Dao heart, I will not seek revenge, and I am willing to offer this talisman treasure and 10,000 spirit stones as compensation, Meng Yibai shouted out, trapped beneath the golden light brick, his mana sluggish. I am rather curious, having disguised my appearance, how did you manage to track me down? Lu Changxing pressed, using the remaining power of the golden light brick to suppress Meng Yibai, as he voiced his inquiry. I have an Earth-rank lower-grade pet beast, the Earth Spirit Mouse. This mouse doesn't have many talents, but it has an extremely sharp sense of smell for spiritual objects, and this sense applies in other areas as well. It had caught the scent on your body, the odor of the storage bag, so even if you changed your appearance and concealed your aura, it still couldn't be completely hidden and could be sensed approximately, Meng Yibai explained. Chapter 331. Sword Cultivator Duel, Who Killed My Grandson? _4 If the fellow Taoist requires, Meng would also be willing to offer this earth spirit mouse. As a sword cultivator, although Meng Yibai was begging for mercy, he still stood tall, speaking neither humbly nor arrogantly. So that's how it is. Lu Changxing nodded slightly upon hearing this. He had previously read in books about how some treasures and spiritual beasts could even sense the treasures inside another person's storage bag. He never expected that this earth spirit mouse would be able to sniff out not only a person's aura but the aura of their storage bag as well. This gave him a shiver of fear. Fortunately, he hadn't encountered a cultivator who could sense the treasures in his storage bag. Otherwise, he would have been the ultimate fat sheep. Fellow Taoist, what do you say? Meng Yibai, whose mana was nearly depleted and watching his talisman treasure dimming, felt a sense of urgency but still steadied his mental spirit and said in a deep voice, "There's nothing to say. In this situation, how can I let you go? I can't rest easy if I don't kill you." As soon as Lu Changsheng's words fell, the seven-colored giant sword thunderously slashed down. From the moment his opponent engaged him in combat, his opponent's death was certain. Fellow Taoist, we originally had no grudges, and this matter was due to my momentary impulsiveness, which offended you. I am willing to apologize to you, and you can make any demands. Moreover, my grandmother, a false core immortal of the Qingyun sect, has planted a soul seal inside my body. If you kill me, she will be informed. I am telling you this not as a threat but to let you know that if you kill me, you will only bring endless trouble upon yourself, with disadvantages outweighing the benefits. Meng Yibai forced his mana to surge, spinning the golden sword bead to attempt escape. But being suppressed by the golden brick, his movements were like being mired in a swamp, making it difficult to break free, forcing him to reactivate his talisman treasure to block the attack. At this moment, his tone became hurried, unable to maintain the calmness and dignity he previously had. Alas, that is exactly why I asked you at first if there was a misunderstanding. But unfortunately, given the chance, you did not know how to seize it. Lu Changxing sighed. No sooner had he spoken than his eyes revealed a fierce glint, and he thrust down the seven-colored giant sword with all his might. Today, no matter the excuses, his opponent was doomed. Otherwise, being sought after by someone so prideful and willing to chase him over a small matter would make his own life unbearable. Boom, boom, boom. The forcefully activated talisman treasure and sword bead erupted, colliding constantly in front of the seven-colored giant sword. But his mana was largely expended, and he was suppressed by the golden brick, his mana sluggish. Facing such a fearsome assault, how could he possibly block it? Puchi, Puchi, Puchi. 5 spears from behind the second-rank puppet burst forth simultaneously, piercing through Meng Yibai's protective aura and then through his body like thunder. Pooh! In an instant, Meng Yibai spat blood and lost the strength to support his talisman treasure and sword bead against the attack. The next moment, the seven-colored giant sword descended like the opening of the heavens and the earth, slicing Meng Yibai's body in two, splattering blood and drenching the sky. My methods are still too few. Were it not for the mana enhancement and support from the profound origin bead, the outcome of this battle would have been uncertain. Not to mention, this flying sword isn't quite suited to me. After witnessing Meng Yibai's death, Lu Changxing let out a breath and murmured to himself, gaining a rough understanding of his own strength. Without dwelling on it further, he instantly reached out with a man-influenced hand, capturing the opponent's treasures and body, and disappeared in an escape light. At that moment, Qingyun sect, within a golden and dazzling magnificent palace. An old lady with aged features and graying hair suddenly felt something in her heart. A life-bound jade token appeared in her hand. But now, this life-bound jade token showed cracks. Yibai. Watching the broken life-bound token in her hand, her eyes filled with disbelief as she let out a piercing scream. Who is it? Who killed my grandson? The old lady's entire presence saturated the air, and her eyes revealed a reddish hue. Moments later, she transformed into a rainbow light and flew out of the palace. Straight away, steering a spirit boat, she turned into an escape light and shot towards the Qingyun market. Chapter 332. Great Harvest. Could the killer of my grandson be false core immortal? underscored within a cave. Lu Changsheng closed his eyes and surveyed himself with his divine sense. He saw an odd grayish aura within his body. Is this the so-called soul seal? Not only does it allow the caster to know when the person on whom the spell is cast dies or encounters an accident, but it also allows the caster to find the slayer from 1,000 miles away by transforming the soul seal into a resentful soul thread that resides within the assailant. Lu Changsheng looked at the gray aura and murmured to himself. He attempted to eradicate the gray aura with his mana. But the gray aura wriggled and twisted like a living being, proving to be obstinate. His mana was simply unable to eradicate it. Then, Lu Changsheng took out a second-rank lower-grade purification talisman and activated it on himself. A glow as pure and white as water flowed through his body, and upon sensing the gray aura, it immediately enveloped it. However, the purifying force could only suppress the gray aura to a certain extent and was unable to purify it completely. A soul seal planted by a false core immortal is indeed not so easily resolved. Must I really be forced to use a life-substituting talisman? Lu Changsheng's eyes narrowed slightly as he muttered to himself. Knowing that Meng Yibai was the grandson of a false core immortal, he still dared to kill him because he had something to rely on. This reliance was the life-substituting talisman. The life-substituting talisman had the effect of fending off lethal attacks and escaping through space. Schemes like the soul seal and resentful soul threads that curse one's life could also be diverted by the life-substituting talisman to take the user's place. First, let's see if other methods can resolve this resentful soul thread. Otherwise, using this fourth-rank life-substituting talisman here would be too wasteful. Lu Changsheng took a deep breath and thought to himself. He did not wish to waste his life-saving talisman so easily and carelessly. After all, this life-substituting talisman could allow him to escape death even from a nascent soul below. To be so frightened as to use the life-substituting talisman for a yet-to-arrive false core immortal would be too disheartening. Moreover, if I really have to use the life-substituting talisman, I'd have to wait until that false core immortal comes searching. By then, I could also remember his appearance and aura to send him on his way with the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates to settle the grudge once and for all. The Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates would require 100 years of lifespan to curse a nascent soul immortal to death. I wonder how much it would take for a false core immortal, 30 years or 50. Lu Changsheng pondered silently. Although the false core immortal is called an immortal, there is, after all, a false prefix. It is not achieved through their own cultivation but by relying on external objects and refining a demon core to advance. In comparison to a true nascent soul immortal, there's no way to compare. Whether it's in terms of strength or lifespan, they fall far short of a nascent soul immortal. Not only is their cultivation unable to progress further in this life, but their lifespan is also limited to just over 300 years. Nevertheless, this is a last resort. If it can be avoided, it's best avoided. Not only would it waste 2 of my treasures, but the death of a false core immortal might also provoke an investigation by the Qingyun sect. Lu Changsheng considered to himself. Then he closed his eyes, sat cross-legged, and began to circulate the 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture. He tried to transform his mana into 7 luminaries' sword chi to refine the resentful soul thread. After all, the 7 luminaries' sword chi can refine elixir toxicity, so perhaps it could refine the resentful soul thread as well. Sizzle! Sword chi enveloped Lu Changsheng's body, nearly piercing through it. The 7 luminaries' sword chi inside him, like serpentine dragons, wrapped around the resentful soul thread, emitting a sound like fierce fire crackling in oil. Despite being engulfed and devoured by the 7 luminaries' sword chi, the resentful soul thread still stubbornly twisted and writhed. Moments later, it really works. The 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture, as an orthodox level cultivation technique, has the power to refine even a false core immortal's resentful soul thread. But this refining speed is too slow. It will take at least 2 or 3 days to refine this resentful soul thread completely. In 2 or 3 days, that false core immortal might find me. Lu Changsheng opened his eyes, a trace of joy on his face. Recalling how the second-rank purification talisman had a suppressive effect on the resentful soul thread, he took out another second-rank lower-grade purification talisman and activated it on himself. As the purifying force flowed through his body towards the resentful soul thread, Lu Changxing immediately began refining the gray aura with his 7 luminaries sword qi. Indeed, under these conditions, his efficiency in refining the resentful soul thread doubled. By the time the effects of the purification talisman wore off, Lu Changxing had refined about 1/10 to 1/5 of the gray aura. If I had a second-rank supreme purification talisman to suppress this resentful soul thread, perhaps I could refine it quickly. After seeing the method's effectiveness, Lu Changxing promptly took out the talisman pens and talisman materials for second-rank talismans he had bought from the marketplace from his storage bag. He began to draw a second-rank supreme purification talisman, planning to rely on the talisman's assistance to rapidly refine the resentful soul thread. Having just been through a magical combat, not only was his mana spent, but his heart had not completely calmed yet. Therefore, Lu Changxing did not start by drawing a second-rank supreme talisman. Instead, he first drew a second-rank middle-grade purification talisman to recover his touch and calm his heart. An hour later, Lu Changxing held the talisman pen and slowly outlined a second-rank middle-grade purification talisman, infusing it with mana. The talisman paper radiated with a white light, surging forth and bringing the talisman to form. After completing this talisman, Lu Changxing did not rest. He began drawing a second-rank upper-grade purification talisman. It took Lu Changxing about half an hour to finish drawing this second-rank upper-grade purification talisman. Talisman making is such, the higher the grade of the talisman being drawn, the more difficult and complex it becomes, and the more time and mana it consumes. However, Lu Changxing not only possessed a maxed-out talisman-making skill at the second rank, he also had the profound origin bead, acting as a second dantian. Inside it, he stored 9 times his own mana, which kept his mana nearly inexhaustible and spared him the worry of insufficient mana. Chapter 333, Great Harvest, Could the Killer of My Grandson Be False Core Immortal? Moreover, having broken through to Foundation Establishment, Lu Changxing was not so easily fatigued in his mental spirit just by drawing a few talismans. Phew! With the feel gained from just now by drawing 2 talismans, Lu Changxing took a deep breath, his expression serious, and began to draw a second-rank Supreme Purification Talisman. Currently, for drawing second-rank Superior Grade Talisman, he had a 98% chance of success. But for the second-rank Supreme Talisman, he only had about a 70 to 80% chance. He didn't dare claim he could succeed 100% of the time. Lu Changxing, holding the talisman brush, slowly started to draw. The mana from within his body flowed unceasingly through the second-rank brush, outlining on the talisman paper, making the paper constantly bloom with colors and forming mysterious runes. An hour later, Lu Changxing looked at the second-rank Supreme Talisman he had successfully drawn, a faint smile appearing on his face. He then picked up the talisman and applied the Purification Talisman to himself. Instantly, the talisman's white light flourished, illuminating the cave as if it were daytime. The purifying force, like tidal waves, surged into Lu Changxing's body, enveloping and purifying the strands of malevolent spirits. In this process, the strands were directly purified by the talisman. Lu Changxing felt that, with just 5 or 6 second-rank Supreme Purification Talismans, he could directly purify these malevolent spirit strands. Lu Changxing didn't think too much and quickly began to circulate the 7 luminaries' freedom scripture. With the 7 luminaries' sword qi in coordination with the Purification Talisman, he refined the wisp of malevolent spirit strand. Half an hour later, the strand of malevolent spirit inside Lu Changxing was directly refined by 80%. Seeing this, Lu Changxing didn't continue drawing second-rank Supreme Purification Talismans. He directly used the second-rank Superior Grade Talisman he had just drawn. With the help of the purifying power of this Superior Grade Talisman, Lu Changxing directly refined the remaining strands of the malevolent spirit. After the refining was complete, Lu Changxing used his divine sense and the remaining second-rank middle-grade purification talismans to check again and confirm. Ensuring that the malevolent spirit strand within his body was refined and there were no other issues, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Glancing at the six-winged golden silkworm, which was absorbing the residual blood of Meng Yibai's corpse. "Let's go." Lu Changsheng beckoned, recalling the six-winged golden silkworm. Then a fireball technique shot out, burning Meng Xiaobai's body to ashes and causing the cave to collapse. Only then did he take out an escape talisman and quickly depart. After continuously fleeing for several hundred miles, Lu Changsheng finally started to rest. He took out 2 elixir medicines and swallowed them to restore his physical strength and mana. Only then did he start to sort through Meng Yibai's storage bag to see what gains he had made. "This is a sword cultivator, huh? Apart from a flying sword and a life-bound sword pellet, there is only one tortoise shell magic artifact. He doesn't have any other magic artifacts." Lu Changsheng glanced at the storage bag, giving it a cursory sweep with his divine sense. He discovered that surprisingly, there were no magic artifacts inside, just spirit stones, spiritual medicine, and various elixir medicines. Immediately afterward, Lu Changsheng set aside the spirit stones, spiritual medicines, and various precious materials. He picked up a medicine bottle, sniffed the aroma and nodded. This should be origin nurturing elixir, and there are still 7 pills, not bad. This should be harmonizing energy elixir." Lu Changsheng evaluated each elixir medicine bottle one by one. Just then, as Lu Changsheng opened a porcelain bottle, he looked at the pill inside, and his pupils couldn't help but constrict. He immediately poured the pill into his palm to take a closer look. It really is a foundation establishment elixir. Why would he have a foundation establishment elixir on him? Lu Changsheng looked at this foundation establishment elixir with a little surprise and delight. He really hadn't expected Meng Yibai to have a foundation establishment elixir on him. He had been thinking about getting a genuine foundation establishment elixir for Lu Miaoge. After all, with Lu Miaoge's talent, wanting to make a breakthrough in foundation establishment without a foundation establishment elixir was almost impossible. So he planned, once Lu Miaoge reached Qi refinement perfection, to visit the 3 great immortal cities to see if he could get a foundation establishment elixir through some channel or at an auction. Never did he expect to find what he sought without putting much effort into it and inadvertently obtaining a foundation establishment elixir from Meng Yibai. Moreover, it was exactly the genuine foundation establishment elixir he needed, not some inferior product. "Now that I have the foundation establishment elixir as well as the 3 suns elixir and foundation establishment spirit objects, Sister Miaoge's foundation establishment should be secure." Lu Changsheng didn't think too much about where Meng Yibai got the foundation establishment elixir from. He was simply grateful for the kind person's gift. He carefully stored the foundation establishment elixir, preparing to give it to Lu Miaoge when the time came. After all, she was currently his only wife with hopes of achieving foundation establishment. If he had the ability to assist her, he would naturally lend a hand. For Lu Miaoyun, Chu Zhenjin, and Lu Miaohuan, he currently had no way to assist them. After clearing up the storage bag, Lu Changsheng opened the spiritual pet bag. He immediately saw a palm-sized golden-furred, endearingly clumsy hamster. A hamster! Lu Changsheng saw this innocuous, somewhat cute golden hamster and was stunned. After all, in the cultivation world he had seen many ferocious demon beasts. Suddenly seeing such a harmless and endearingly clumsy hamster really caught him off guard. "Is this the Earth Spirit Mouse?" Lu Changsheng looked at the golden hamster and immediately knew this must be the Earth-rank low-grade bloodline demon beast, the Earth Spirit Mouse, that Meng Yibai had mentioned. It was relying on this Earth Spirit Mouse that the other party had detected his scent, seeing through his disguise. Lu Changsheng took the beast control token from the storage bag into his hands. Then, with a subtle movement of his mental spirit, he released the golden hamster from the spiritual pet bag. Squeak, squeak, squeak. When the little hamster appeared and saw Lu Changsheng, it displayed fear and trepidation. This demon beast, although possessing an Earth-grade bloodline, was primarily skilled in its sense of smell and used for treasure hunting. It was not combat-oriented and was quite timid. Now with only late-stage first-grade power, The hamster naturally felt fear and trepidation in the presence of Lu Changxing, a foundation establishment cultivator. Moreover, Lu Changxing was holding in his hand the beast control token that decided its fate. Throughout my life, adrift as a mouse, I have only regretted not finding a worthy master. Now that I have met one, if you would not reject me, I am willing to acknowledge you as my adoptive father. Chapter 334. Great Harvest. Could the killer of my grandson be false core immortal? The golden hamster looked at Lu Changxing, knelt on both legs, and made a gesture of bowing with its hands. Through the beast control token, it also sent a mental communication. Lu Changxing received this mental communication and looked at the little hamster in front of him, somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected that this demon beast would possess such intelligence. Like his own six-winged golden silkworm, despite being of heavenly grade bloodline, it utterly lacked any intelligence. All it knew was to kill, kill, kill. This is indeed the two extremes. Lu Changxing smiled, picked up the hamster in front of him to inspect it, and gave it a couple of rubs. The golden fur was like silk, very comfortable to the touch. This earth spirit mouse has an extremely keen sense of smell for heaven and earth spiritual objects. If one is exploring a secret realm or dungeon, having such a demon beast can easily double the efficiency. What a pity I hardly ever run dungeons. Lu Changxing looked at the hamster and smacked his lips. But he didn't feel it was a waste. This treasure-seeking mouse was quite good for the family. Moreover, if he didn't use it, he could at least sell it for tens of thousands of spirit stones later on. However, what demon beast's egg is this? Lu Changxing put the hamster back into the spiritual pet bag. With a slight movement of his mental spirit, a pale green egg, the size of a watermelon, appeared. When he checked the spiritual pet bag, he saw that besides the earth spirit mouse, there was also a pet beast egg. But looking at the egg's appearance, he couldn't discern which demon beast's egg it was. Being in the spiritual pet bag of a second-generation cultivator, it mustn't be an ordinary demon beast's egg. Lu Changxing held the egg and examined it for a few moments. He could tell that there were normal life signs within, but it would take some time before it could hatch. He put the spiritual pet bag away again, planning to study it later. Although there are only just over 6,000 spirit stones, and there are no other magic artifacts. But the talisman treasure, foundation establishment elixir, earth spirit mouse, and this pet egg are also great gains. Lu Changxing roughly tallied the spoils of this encounter. 51 middle-grade spirit stones. 1,372 lower-grade spirit stones. Spiritual medicine, materials, elixir medicines, worth 4,000 to 5,000 spirit stones. Then there were the talisman treasure, the golden flying sword, the life-bound sword pellet, the flying shuttle, as well as the foundation establishment elixir, the earth spirit mouse, and the pet egg. Several hours later, a streak of escape light cut through the air, descending from the sky. It arrived at the place where Meng Yibai and Lu Changxing had fought. Yibai should have fallen here. The old crone stood on the spirit boat, her eyes emitting a faint glow, surveying the surroundings. After a while, her expression turned extremely grave. As a sword cultivator, Yibai was invincible at his level, and with the blue jade ruler talisman I gave him for self-defense, he could even escape from those in the late stages of foundation establishment. Yet not only has he fallen here, but the soul seal I planted inside him has also disappeared. Could it be that the person who killed Yibai is a false core immortal? The old crone's face was serious, her eyes slightly vacant as she murmured to herself. She could only deduce that her grandson had died here from some residual auras, but could not understand the specific circumstances. The absence of the soul seal and vengeful spirits made her realize that the person who killed her grandson was not simple. It was very likely a false core cultivator. But the next moment, she shook her head slightly, feeling it was unlikely to be a false core cultivator. If it were a false core cultivator, they wouldn't have left behind so much residue of a magical duel. Moreover, even if her grandson was audacious and recklessly confident in his abilities to overcome all challenges, he would not have provoked a false core immortal. If it were a foundation establishment cultivator, the old crone's expression grew even graver. Realizing that if a foundation establishment cultivator had killed her grandson and dealt with the vengeful spirit thread, then this indicated that the opponent was extraordinary. Behind them could very well be a false core immortal, or even a nascent soul immortal. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to kill her grandson. Alas, I warned Ibai many times, being too rigid can lead to breakage. Those who advance too boldly retreat quickly. The true strength of an unsheathed green peak lies in its concealment. Cultivating the sword Dao is not about blindly seeking sharpness. The old crone, with hands clasped behind her back, suddenly sighed, murmured to herself, and stooped a little more. At this moment, even though her heart was filled with myriad feelings of outrage and hatred, she had nowhere to vent them. Furthermore, guessing that the person who killed her grandson was no small fry also made her wary. After all, she had only a few decades of life left. The entire family relied on her, the old ancestor, for support. Now that Meng Ibai, the pillar of the family's future, was dead, she, as the old ancestor, had to keep supporting it so that the family lineage would continue. Ibai was serving as the record chief in the marketplace. Why would he suddenly be here, fighting with someone? The old crone paused for a moment, her eyes squinted into slits, still pondering her grandson's affairs. Even though she was apprehensive, she couldn't simply give up and ignore the revenge for her grandson's death. Suddenly, the old crone controlled her spirit boat and flew toward the Qingyun market. She intended to investigate the reason her grandson left the market and why he ended up in combat. Chapter 335. The Seven Luminaries Star's Sword, Second Transformation Peach Blossom Gu. _1 Lady Meng arrived at the Qingyun market and began to inquire about the recent circumstances of her grandson, Meng Ibai, and whether anything had happened within the marketplace. Since the Qingyun market was established by the Qingyun sect, she, as a false core immortal, naturally found it quite effortless to obtain this kind of information. Before long, she had a general understanding of her grandson's recent situation and the latest developments in the marketplace. Among these, she sharply picked up on a piece of information. Xianxia was making her attempt at foundation establishment in the Qingyun market. Moreover, Xianxia was not attempting foundation establishment alone. She was also co-renting a cave dwelling with a man to make the attempt. Upon learning this news, Lady Meng realized in her heart that her grandson's death from an external conflict could very well be related to this matter. She knew her grandson's temperament very well, and was aware of his pursuit of Xianxia. It was she who first brought it up, hoping her grandson could take Fairy Xiyu as his cultivation partner. If her grandson knew that Xianxia had come to the Qingyun market for foundation establishment, he would surely go to offer his congratulations. But upon seeing Xianxia being intimate with another man, sharing a room, feelings of jealousy and even murderous intent towards the man would surely arise. Xianxia. Lady Meng's complexion turned somewhat unsightly. Unexpectedly, the matter had somehow become entangled with Xianxia. The lead pointed back to Xianxia. However, even knowing the matter was related to Xianxia and could be investigated through her, she dared not go to Xianxia to inquire. For one, she herself was not in the right in this matter. If a man could share a room and attempt foundation establishment with Xianxia, even if they were not cultivation partners, their relationship was certainly not shallow. In such a situation, her grandson getting into trouble due to jealousy and meeting his demise was simply courting death. Seeking her out herself might even offend Xianxia. She was certainly not afraid of Xianxia, but Xianxia's status was special. She had Yun Wansheng, a core formation master, as her mentor. Even as a false core immortal, she dared not offend the esteemed Kaiyun True Immortal. After all, this was a true nascent soul immortal. Especially since the Kaiyun True Immortal had real power within the sect and was extremely protective of her own. Just a year ago, she even drew swords with Qiang Peak over matters concerning her disciple, Xianxia. With such a temperament, Lady Meng knew she could not provoke her. If this true immortal of Kaiyun learned of the matter and targeted her, one strike aimed at her, and she feared she would have to prepare her last rites in advance. Furthermore, learning that the person had just broken through to the foundation establishment confirmed her previous suspicions. The assailant behind her grandson's slaying must have had someone else supporting him, most likely a false core immortal or even a nascent soul immortal. Otherwise, how could a person who had just achieved foundation establishment possibly defeat her grandson, let alone slay him? Sigh. After having a general understanding of the cause and effect, Lady Meng let out a deep sigh. Her stature dejected, she left the Qingyun market in her spirit boat, heading back to the Qingyun sect. She planned to spend the following days peacefully within the Qingyun sect. This flying sword is indeed a bit more suited to me than the red-robed young man's spiritual artifact flying sword, Lu Chongsheng spoke after refining Meng Yibai's golden flying sword, toying with it for a while. But it's also because I possess a Gingjin body constitution, which makes this flying sword more compatible with me, he added. If I want to possess a truly suitable spiritual sword, I'll need to employ an artifact refiner to forge a spiritual sword that encompasses both yin and yang and the 5 elements, Lu observed. Practicing the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, Lu Chongxing was naturally very clear about what kind of spiritual sword he needed to maximize his strength. It was difficult to acquire such a spiritual sword through purchase or pillage, as most flying swords in the cultivation world were of a single attribute or had 2 or 3 attributes. It was rare to find one with both yin and yang and the 5 elements. One had to commission an artifact refiner to forge it. When I have some spare money later on, I'll hire someone to forge one, Lu Chongxing decided as he stowed away the flying sword, thinking to himself. He wasn't too concerned about it. This kind of flying sword was, after all, just a transitional spiritual artifact. During the foundation establishment stage, his life-bound spiritual artifact was the 7 luminaries' heart lamp. Once this lamp was forged, his strength could rise to another level. As for the flying sword, when he broke through to core formation, within the 3rd level of the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, there was a set called 7 luminaries stars sword, consisting of magical treasures flying swords of various different attributes. He could forge the Sun Solar Sword, the Lunar Solar Sword, the Venus Solar Sword, the Jupiter Solar Sword, the Saturn Solar Sword, the Mars Solar Sword, and the Terran Solar Sword, 7 magical treasures flying swords of differing attributes. This set of magical treasures flying swords, when paired with the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, complemented each other perfectly, amplifying their power significantly. They could also turn into 64 sword shadows to form the 7 luminaries' star sword formation. Once this sword formation was complete, even at the initial stage of core formation he could easily suppress a mid-nascent soul stage, and might even overpower someone at the core formation late stage. Still, I'm only at foundation establishment, and magical treasures are far beyond my reach. Lu Chongxing shook his head, not dwelling further on the subject. He took out a jade slip map, poured his mana into it, and checked his current location. He was about 2 days' travel from Qingzhou Mountain. Although the spiteful spirit threads have been refined, I still don't know if Meng Yibai's false core elder has any other means to track me down. Therefore, to be safe, I'd better wander outside for a while longer, not hurrying back to Qingzhou Mountain to avoid attracting trouble, he pondered. After checking the map, Lu Chongxing decided to spend the next 10 days to half a month observing the surroundings before returning. Confirming that Meng Yibai's elder could not find him was prudent before going back. Otherwise, involving Qingzhou Mountain and the Hongye marketplace would be unfortunate. Sigh, it seems I really must limit my excursions, he reflected. Chapter 336, The 7 Luminaries Stars Sword, Second Transformation Peach Blossom Goo. It's one thing to kill ordinary robber cultivators, but killing those second-generation cultivators with influential backgrounds might bring serious trouble. Lu Chongxing sighed. He made up his mind that after this trip home, he would focus on making money and nurturing his child, settling his own foundation. Otherwise, encountering more people like Meng Yibai might bring trouble to his family. Moreover, he needed to invest more effort into raising his child and education. If not, even if he could establish a family, it would be troublesome if the child grew up improperly. Just as Lu Chongxing was about to find a place to rest, he felt a faint throbbing in his glabella. The peach blossom goo has completed its transformation and ascended to the second transformation. The next moment, Lu Chongxing knew what this trembling sensation was about. It was his peach blossom goo reaching ascension. This peach blossom goo had already peaked at the first transformation. But due to the limitations of his own cultivation level, it had been unable to transform and ascend to the second transformation. At the very moment he achieved foundation establishment, the peach blossom goo in his glabella began its transformation and ascension. Now, a month had passed, and the peach blossom goo had completed its transformation, successfully ascending to the second transformation. The ascension of the peach blossom goo to the second transformation didn't come with significant changes. Just an enhancement of its 3 original effects. This made his peach blossom luck even more prosperous. The peach blossom goo improved his appearance and charisma when attracting the opposite sex, as well as its proactive effect, enhancing the affliction of the 5 aggregates peach blossom poison. With the peach blossom gus ascension, my peach blossom luck has increased even further. I'd better go out less. Otherwise, I might encounter peach blossom luck the moment I step out of the door. Lu Changsheng stroked his chin and chuckled lightly. Immediately, he descended toward a large mountain in front of him, planning to pause here for half a month, to see if the false core immortal backing Meng Yibai would find him. If they did come looking, he would proceed as planned, fleeing with a life-substituting talisman and settling scores using the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. If not, naturally that would be best. After visiting the true Immortal Du at the Qingyun market, Xianxia didn't delay and returned directly to the Qingyun sect. Upon her arrival at the sect, she headed straight for Kaiyun Peak. She went to voir her master at the magnificent palace at the very peak. As soon as she arrived in front of the grand hall, Xianxia saw on the stairs a woman clad in colorful clouds, her hair done up in a cloud bun, with an appearance as stunning as a heavenly maiden, noble and gorgeous. It was her master, Yunwanshi. Apparently, her master knew she had returned and was waiting for her here. Master! Xianxia immediately greeted her with a respectful curtsy. Shiyu, you have not disappointed your teacher, Yunwanshang said, with a faint smile on her face as she looked at her disciple. She had received early news from the real Immortal Du at Qingyun Market of Xiaoxia's success in foundation establishment. She also knew that Xiaoxia was not alone in her breakthrough. She had undergone foundation establishment together with Lu Changxing. After hearing this news, she felt reassured on the one hand, yet also experienced an indescribable complexity. It was reassuring that Xiaoxia had overcome her emotional ordeal, reached a complete state of mind, and succeeded in foundation establishment. The complexity was due to the situation between Xiaoxia and Lu Changxing. Although she had been prepared for this, actually learning that Lu Changxing and Xiaoxia underwent foundation establishment together still left her feeling complex. This meant that her connection with Lu Changxing was completely severed. Upon learning of Lu Changxing's foundation establishment, she felt an inexplicable irritability. She was afraid that Lu Changxing would activate the jade pendant to contact her. After all, when she had given the jade pendant to Lu Changxing, she had said that once he achieved foundation establishment, she would give him a chance. But now that Lu Changxing and Xiaoxia had formed a bond and taken that step together, she didn't know how to deal with the situation. Fortunately, there had been no movement from the jade pendant. Yet this also brought some displeasure to her heart. Although she had already decided in her heart, even if Lu Changxing activated the jade pendant, she wouldn't respond. However, even though she would ignore it, the fact that Lu Changxing had succeeded in foundation establishment and didn't activate the jade pendant to contact her annoyed her quite a bit. She wanted to ask Lu Changxing what he meant by that. Did he look down on her? She was a nascent soul immortal, offering such an unparalleled opportunity, and yet he didn't know to cherish and seize it. Master, I have still disappointed you, Xiaoxia said softly, pursing her lips. Yun Wanshang was slightly startled upon hearing this. She then examined Xiaoxia carefully, immediately noticing that Xiaoxia's magical aura was slightly amiss. As Xiaoxia's master, she naturally knew that the foundation base her disciple sought to condense was the Supreme Een Mysterious Moon Dao Foundation. This foundation base was quite impressive even among perfect foundation bases, not only for its robust foundation of mana but also for complementing Xiaoxia's constitution. But what she observed at the moment was not like a perfect foundation base in Xianxia's magical aura. She immediately grasped Xianxia's wrist, which was as white as jade, to examine her condition. She quickly saw that atop the perfect moon-white Dao platform in Xianxia's dantian, there was a clearly visible and significant crack. This, Yun Wanshang was taken aback. She had not expected her disciple's foundation establishment to be a success, and that the supreme mysterious Moon Dao Foundation had been condensed, yet there were flaws in the Dao Foundation. Shi Yu, why has this happened? Yun Wanshang asked Xiaoxia. Although she had not cultivated the supreme forgetful love technique, she had studied it. She knew that this cultivation technique placed great emphasis on the state of mind. If the state of mind was not complete, foundation establishment would be difficult. And there was no such thing as achieving foundation establishment but with a flawed foundation base. Moreover, to have condensed a perfect foundation base and still have flaws was something she had never seen before. Master, it was only during the breakthrough in foundation establishment that I truly understood the real meaning of cloud without emotion, moon without emotion in the first layer of supreme forgetful love, where clouds and moon converge. The clouds envelop the moon illuminates the clouds, both with a semblance of separation and connection, one cold and silent, the other ethereal and unpredictable, both heartless. This represents cloud without emotion, moon without emotion. Chapter 337. The Seven Luminaries Stars Sword, Second Transformation Peach Blossom Goo. Disciple started off wrong. This also led to disciples' accidental success in foundation establishment, yet the Dao Foundation is flawed. Xiaoxia slowly conveyed her own situation and her understanding of the supreme forgetful love technique to her master. What a Yun Wuqing Mingyue without love! Yun Wanshang couldn't help but sigh upon hearing this. She had previously seen through the layer of the supreme forgetful love technique that cloud and moon rely on each other. This is how she had instructed Xiaoxia. But she hadn't expected this interdependence to mean emotional detachment despite desire. She really didn't know how to evaluate this cultivation technique. She nodded and said, Shi Yu, rest assured, a damaged Dao Foundation is not irreparable. As a teacher, I also know of several rare natural treasures that have the effect of repairing the Dao Foundation, and I will find them for you when the time comes. Yun Wanshang said so. Xiaoxia was not only her direct disciple. In her view, this cultivation mistake and the damage to the Dao Foundation were also related to her as a teacher. Initially, when she instructed Xiaoxia in her cultivation, she did not show the clear path. It was also because of her guidance that Xiaoxia took the wrong path. Master, disciple considers this to be a blessing in disguise. Xiaoxia gently shook her head, and a bright and gentle smile appeared on her cool face as the ice and snow melted away. Yun Wanshang looked at her disciple and was slightly taken aback upon hearing these words. One reason being that she didn't fully understand her disciple's meaning. Another was that it had been a long time since she had seen Xiaoxia smile like this. After mastering the supreme forgetful love technique, although Xiaoxia was not entirely cold-faced in front of her master, her expression only became somewhat gentler and was not usually like this. This made her realize that there must have been significant changes in her disciple following this foundation establishment. Master, although there are flaws in this foundation, it has led me to understand the true essence of the supreme forgetful love technique. I have also realized the meaning of the second level, cloud with affection, moon with affection. If your disciple can cultivate this level to perfection, there is hope to completely restore the Dao Foundation. Xiaoxia said. She knew she couldn't hide the damage to her Dao Foundation from her master, Yun Wanshang, so she was upfront about it. But the fact that Lu Changsheng could repair the Dao Foundation was too astonishing. Therefore, she chose to attribute this to the supreme forgetful love technique. In the future, when her Dao Foundation was restored to perfection, even taken a step further, she could have a reason to explain it. Moreover, she wanted to continue descending the mountain to cultivate with Lu Changsheng and needed her master Yun Wanshang's approval. It wasn't just about such cultivation in the marketplace. In the Qingyun sect, after a disciple succeeds in foundation establishment, the sect also arranges tasks. even if she was the disciple of a nascent soul immortal. So she needed to speak openly about it to ask for her master's approval, to temporarily put aside her duties. Cloud with affection, moon with affection, repairing the Tao foundation on your own. Yun Wanshang was somewhat shocked upon hearing this. The supreme forgetful love technique seemed even more mysterious and profound in her heart. She wondered whether it was right or wrong to let Xianxia choose this cultivation technique initially. After all, even with her vision as a nascent soul immortal, she had not yet fathomed the true meaning of this technique. One can imagine its difficulty in cultivation. Based on the disciples' understanding of the supreme forgetful love technique's second level, cloud with affection, moon with affection. With the cloud's accompaniment, the moon shines more brightly, and with the moon's illumination, the cloud appears more lively and graceful. To people on the ground, both reflect each other's brilliance, creating a picture-perfect beauty in the azure sky. Therefore, Xianxia continued. She slowly expressed her understanding of the second level of the supreme forgetful love technique. The first level is desire without affection, making people forget love upon foundation establishment. The second level, however, fills the heart with affection beneath the veneer of forgetfulness. Yun Wanshang, as a nascent soul immortal, already had an understanding of the supreme forgetful love technique. Now, having heard her disciples' words, she instantly understood the meaning and the key points. After thinking it over, she found the supreme forgetful love deeply profound and elusive, hard to fully comprehend at once. There was a hint of recognizing the mountains as mountains, then not as mountains, and finally as mountains again. Shiyu, do you plan to descend the mountain again to cultivate with the help of that Lu Changsheng? Yun Wanshang also understood why her disciple had shared so much with her. It wasn't just a matter of reporting to her as a teacher. It was also about setting out her path of cultivation. Please, Master, approve. Xianxia bowed with her hands clasped. Yun Wanshang did not speak but looked at her disciple. She had come to terms with her own issues with Lu Changsheng. However, seeing her disciple increasingly involved with Lu Changsheng for the sake of cultivation, she couldn't help but be concerned. She wondered if her disciple could truly move on and achieve the true essence of supreme forgetfulness. Moreover, in cultivation, cause and effect are important. The debt of cultivation and the grace of being saved, Xianxia had repaid with the Sun-Moon Tao Foundation. But if the cultivation continued like this, how would she repay the debt and resolve the cause and effect? Their eyes met. Looking into Xianxia's clear, water-like eyes, as serene as the nine heavens' bright moon, Yun Wanshang finally nodded. I permit it, she said. Take the token from your teacher, go to the record hall to register your cultivation level, and then be exempted from sect duties. Yun Wanshang took out a token and gave these instructions. Thank you, Master. Xianxia expressed her gratitude respectfully. Shiyu, the second level is cloud with affection, moon with affection, but the third level, cloud without affection, moon without affection, may well be the true supreme forgetfulness. Having listened to Xianxia's words, Yun Wanshang also had a deeper understanding of the later stages of the supreme forgetful love technique and advised accordingly. Please rest assured, Master. Xianxia understood her master's intentions and replied with a radiant smile. Chapter 338. This peach blossom luck is really a punishment. _1. Phew, looks like everything should be all right now. Atop the mountain, Lu Changsheng opened his eyes, exhaling lightly as the two middle-grade spirit stones in his hand turned to powder. He had stayed on this mountain for over half a month. Besides a few wild beasts coming to offer themselves as meals, no one had searched for him at all. So Lu Changsheng was also preparing to return. After all, if they really had the means, half a month was more than enough time to find him. The fact that no one came for so long also indicated that there was no trouble. Stepping out of the cave, Lu Changsheng released the iron feather eagle, ready to take off, when he saw flames reaching towards the sky from a small mountain village at the base of the mountain. What's happened there, bandits? Lu Changsheng's brows furrowed slightly as he looked carefully and faintly heard cries and screams. Seeing this, he put the iron feather eagle back into the spiritual pet bag and turned into a streak of escape light to check the situation. Although he wasn't someone who would normally intervene in others' affairs, this looked to be a raid by bandits, wielding torches and looting. He had heard about such things in his youth, before his memories were awakened. Now that he had come across it, he would lend a hand where he could. After all, to be human is to have basic morals. You don't spend years cultivating to become an immortal, only to look down on others, indifferent to the plight and death of ordinary people. Swoosh! Lu Changxing became a beam of light speeding toward the village. Before he even got close, he saw a group of bandits dressed in black and riding on horses, slaughtering the villagers as cries and screams pierced the air. It's the horse bandits. Lu Changsheng's expression turned severe. Horse bandits were even more despicable than ordinary robbers and bandits. They had horses coming and going without a trace. Thus, while normal bandits would just raid nearby villages and then leave, it was a long-term infestation. But when horse bandits raided, it completely depended on their mood. Massacring entire villages was a common occurrence. Bold thieves, wantonly taking lives, meet your end. Lu Changxing shouted from the sky. With the enhancement of his mana, his voice roared like thunder, resonating through the entire village. Not good, it's an immortal, everyone retreat quickly. A tall and muscular man with an ominous presence, wielding a 9-ring saber and one eye, heard the deafening voice and immediately panicked, his soul almost flying out of his body as he shouted loudly. However, before he had finished speaking, he saw a stark white flying sword coming straight at him. The next moment, pooh! A head soared up as blood sprayed. The other marauding bandits also became terrified upon hearing this command. Their faces filled with horror, they ran like dogs that had lost their homes. An immortal, it's an immortal. It's an immortal. I heard from Grandpa about legends of immortals who could fly with the wind. The immortal has come to save us. Woo, immortal, save us. The remaining villagers, hearing the shout, felt as if they had grasped a lifeline while drowning. They looked up at Lu Changxing in the sky, calling out loudly in prayer, kneeling and bowing. Pooh, pooh, pooh. Lu Changxing, dressed in his magical robe flapping in the wind, stood aloft in the air, his expression emotionless as the stark white flying sword, like a wandering dragon, unleashed its sword chi in sweeping slashes, killing one bandit after another. The bandits who had been arrogantly slaughtering the villagers were like chickens and ducks awaiting slaughter under Lu Changsheng's flying sword, falling dead immediately upon being struck by the sword chi. We blood cloud bandits were ignorant, unaware an immortal was passing by, and we wish to leave now. Please, immortal, have mercy on us. Immortal, spare our lives. Spare us. The bandits knew that they couldn't resist someone with the capabilities of an immortal like Lu Changxing, and they begged loudly for their lives. But Lu Changxing showed no trace of compassion. If he hadn't happened to pass by today, the blood cloud bandits would have killed who knows how many people. At the very least, this village would not have been spared. The other villagers watching Lu Changxing slaying the bandits felt a surge of relief, but also couldn't help feeling terrified and their scalps numbed. Though the bandits deserved to die, Lu Changxing, with his indifferent expression and impassive demeanor, sword rising and falling like mowing grass, killing bandit after bandit, left them deeply shocked. They felt both respect and fear for this immortal. Shortly after, Lu Changxing had slain dozens of bandits. Looking at the flames burning in the village, he flicked his hand. Suddenly, mana spread from him like a hurricane, extinguishing the blazing flames. Then he helped some of the injured villagers, providing healing. Thank you, immortal. Thank you. Thank you, immortal. I will forever owe a life debt for your kindness. Thank you, immortal. I'll install an altar in my home to pray for your safety. The villagers kneeled and thanked Lu Changxing in succession. They knew their own limitations. They knew they couldn't possibly help Lu Changxing, so they could only express their gratitude in this simplest of ways. Sigh. Lu Changxing looked at the many burned-down huts and dead bodies, and he let out a sigh. Even after so many years of cultivation and numerous experiences, his heart had grown much more indifferent than at first. But faced with such a scene, he couldn't help but feel a heavy weight in his heart. No matter whether it's the cultivation world or the secular world, Those at the bottom always seem to have the hardest lives. It made him feel fortunate that he had encountered the chance to cultivate and reach this stage. Just as Lu Changxing finished aiding people and was about to leave, he noticed a little girl among the crowd kneeling before him. The girl looked to be about 10 years old. Her face was somewhat dirty, wearing ragged gray linen clothes. Yet from such a small girl, Lu Changxing felt an odd allure. This inexplicable sensation caused Lu Changxing to pause. As a man who had been through countless battles and seen all there is to see, Lu Changxing was quite confident about his ability to resist temptation when it came to the fairer sex. Chapter 339. This peach blossom luck is really a punishment. He absolutely didn't believe he could have inexplicable thoughts about a little girl. Especially such a dirty little girl. This little girl has a problem. Lu Changxing scrutinized the little girl carefully. He immediately found, beneath the girl's tattered gray hemp clothes, on her neck and wrists, there were white scales resembling those of fish or snakes. A half-demon? Seeing these scales, Lu Changxing raised an eyebrow. But he didn't sense any demonic energy from the little girl. He employed his spiritual eye technique, looking at the little girl. He saw a faint spiritual energy swirling around her, indicating she possessed a spiritual root. There's a problem, definitely a problem. At this moment, Lu Changxing became even more aware of the issue with the little girl. He had recently achieved foundation establishment, shedding his mortal shell, and his spiritual perception and senses had all improved. Even without using the spiritual eye technique, he could tell whether a person had a spiritual root or not. Yet he hadn't noticed the spiritual root in the little girl before. It was only after using the spiritual eye technique that he saw the spiritual root in the little girl. Could it be some special constitution? Lu Changxing scrutinized the little girl, thinking to himself. The little girl seemed to sense that Lu Changxing was looking at her, and fearfully shrank her petite body. Immortal, it must surely be this monster that brought the bandits. A villager who saw Lu Changxing examining the little girl immediately spoke out. That's right, she's a disaster star. It's this monster that nearly doomed our village. We implore you, Immortal, to eliminate this monster. Soon, several more villagers spoke out. The little girl, upon hearing these words, immediately began to tremble with fright, her eyes brimming with tears. Little girl, don't cry, don't cry. A nearby old woman with gray hair and dressed in gray hemp clothes immediately hugged the little girl to comfort her. Granny Zhao, this monster is a disaster star, and since you adopted it, that's why your son and daughter-in-law never returned from their work outside. Another villager spoke out. This statement instantly caused the old woman to stiffen. What's the matter with this little girl? Lu Changxing raised his hand slightly and asked in a mild tone. He saw that the little girl was problematic, but he could not see exactly what the issue was. Now he heard the words of the people. It seemed that the villagers had long known that there was something wrong with the little girl. Reporting to the Immortal, this monster was originally Su Er's daughter. Su Er used to be a famous hunter in our village, but ever since the birth of this monster, his life became miserable. First, his wife died in childbirth while delivering their second child. Both the mother and child perished. After a few years, Su Er himself never returned from a hunting trip in the mountains. Granny Zhao, out of pity, adopted her, but when she was 7 or 8 she started growing scales on her body, just like snake scales. If that's not a monster, then what is? Moreover, after Granny Zhao adopted this monster, her son and his wife went to the city to work and they too have not returned. Now that our village was doing well, it suffered a bandit attack, which must surely be caused by this disaster star. A few villagers said, "Disaster star, monster." As for a monster, Lu Changxing couldn't deny it. After all, the girl's condition was indeed strange. But regarding the disaster star, he did not agree. In this era, especially for poor families, childbirth was fraught with great risk. And hunting in the mountains or working far from home also came with their own dangers. "What's your name? Would you like to leave with me?" Lu Changxing asked the little girl, his tone gentle. He saw that the girl was extraordinary, problematic. Since this village couldn't accommodate her, he thought it best to take her away and care for her. And see exactly what the situation with this little girl was. Whether she possessed some special constitution or something else. The little girl, hearing Lu Changsheng's words, was slightly taken aback. She felt a warmth and peace from the young man that she had never experienced before. It was a kind of aura and feeling, like a spring breeze, making her subconsciously drawn to him, feeling a sense of goodwill. She didn't answer. She just timidly looked at the granny by her side. Immortal, the child is very well behaved, not a monster, Granny Zhao, thinking that Lu Changxing was about to exorcise a demon, cautiously said. She certainly knew that there was something wrong with the little girl. But after so many years together, she had long considered the little girl her own granddaughter. Not only was she obedient and well-behaved, but she also took the initiative to do farm work, laundry, and cooking. Usually, when she was wronged or bullied by other children, she would hold it in secretly and not tell anyone, which broke Granny Zhao's heart. As for her son and daughter-in-law's situation, although it was painful for her, every year some villagers followed trade caravans to work outside and never returned. So it wasn't entirely fair to blame the child. I saw that this child has a connection with the Immortals, so I thought about taking her away. Lu Changsheng chuckled and said, Connection with the Immortals? What? This girl actually has a connection with the Immortals? Immortal, could you have made a mistake? The other villagers, upon hearing this, exclaimed with envy. Girl, quickly accept the Immortals' offer. Upon hearing Lu Changxing say the little girl had a connection with the Immortals, Granny Zhao immediately urged the little girl. But I am a monster, the little girl said in a low voice. It wasn't that she didn't want to leave with Lu Changxing, but she also felt inside that she was a monster and could bring trouble, feeling somewhat apprehensive. I said you are not a monster, would you like to leave with me? Lu Changxing continued. The girl is willing to leave with the Immortal, the little girl said, looking up with a docile and timid demeanor. After speaking, her eyes were expectant, and her voice slightly stuttering and trembling, she added, Immortal, could you also take Granny away with us? Not bad, your filial piety is commendable, naturally that is possible, Lu Changxing said. Chapter 340. This peach blossom luck is really a punishment. Lu Changxing nodded with a smile. The little girl was willing to leave with him, and it didn't matter to bring an old lady along. After all, it wasn't anything troublesome. He didn't plan to leave the little girl at Qingzhou Mountain. Instead, he intended to settle her in Rui Prefecture first. Thank you, Immortal. Thank you, Immortal. The little girl was thrilled. She hadn't expected Lu Changxing to agree so readily. After all, her hesitation had also been due to her reluctance to leave Granny Zhao. Granny Zhao herself was happy and grateful. Her husband had long passed away, and her son and daughter-in-law had never returned, so naturally, she was willing to embrace this fortunate chance. If that's the case, let's go. Seeing the old lady and the child ready, Lu Changxing didn't say much more. With a slap of his storage bag, a spirit boat appeared. He possessed 2 spirit boats on him. But usually he found them too conspicuous and a waste of spirit stones. Plus, since they were ill-gotten, he rarely used them. Now that there were 2 more people and the iron feather eagle was inconvenient, he naturally used the spirit boat. With a wave of his sleeve, both were gently placed onto the spirit boat. Then, under the villagers' congratulations, Lu Changxing steered the spirit boat upwards, turning into a streak of light, and flew toward Rui Prefecture. And at that moment, Lu Changxing sensed that the peach blossom goo had gathered a strand of peach blossom luck. It meant that taking in the little girl counted as peach blossom fortune. This also counts as peach blossom luck. This is truly amusing. Could this be the mysterious and profound fortune ordained by fate? Because of the prosperous peach blossom luck, did I just happen to rest on this great mountain, just happen to take a half-month break, and just happen to encounter this event, meeting this little girl? Lu Changxing thought to himself. Ever since he acquired the peach blossom goo, every time an incident like this occurred, Lu Changxing would wonder if it was related to the peach blossom goo and if it was peach blossom luck. Now that he saw the peach blossom goo harvest peach blossom luck, he was certain it was. Especially just now, If not for the sudden allure he felt from the little girl, which revealed her abnormality, he wouldn't have noticed her. Lu Changsheng looked at the bashful little girl beside him and asked gently, "Little girl, you haven't told me your name yet." "I'm just called Girl," the little girl said. "Immortal, she doesn't have a name, she's just called Girl." Then, Granny Zhao cautiously added, "No name." Lu Changxing was momentarily taken aback when he heard this. He also remembered that in the countryside, mean names were used for better survival until an older age when proper names were given. And many girls didn't even have mean names at all. "If that's the case, shall I give you a name? How does that sound?" Lu Changxing looked at the little girl and said with a smile, "Girl, don't hesitate to accept and thank the Immortal for bestowing a name." Hearing this, Granny Zhao immediately told the little girl, "Thank you, Immortal." The little girl heard this and showed a hopeful happiness. Other children in the village had names, but she had always been without one. Sometimes she too wished for a name. "From now on, you shall be called by Ling, white as in the color, and Ling as in spirited. How does that sound?" Lu Changxing, looking at the faint white scales on the girl's wrist, spoke out. "Bai Ling, girl, you are to be called Bai Ling from now on. Thank the Immortal promptly." Granny Zhao again told the little girl, "Bai Ling thanks the Immortal." The little girl, hearing her name, repeated it twice and said cheerfully. Lu Changsheng chuckled lightly and then waved his sleeve. A breeze blew by. Swoosh! Bai Ling's dirty little face, as if washed by a spring, became clean and fair. Her features were delicate, and her eyes clear with distinct black and white. Especially her skin, which appeared extremely fair and smooth, like that of a porcelain doll. Although she was still in her worn gray cloth garments, she seemed like a completely different person, no longer resembling a girl from a small mountain village. "Immortal!" Bai Ling glanced at her own palms and touched her reddening cheeks, somewhat shyly. She had discovered, at the age of 7 when scales began to grow on her, that her skin gradually became fair and tender. Her appearance also became more and more attractive. But Granny Zhao said this wasn't good and always smeared her with mud to cover it up. So now, with the dirt removed and her true face revealed, she was somewhat unaccustomed and felt shy. When Granny Zhao witnessed this scene, she was also quite astonished. She had always known that Bai Ling was pretty, especially her skin, which wasn't like that of a country folk but even better than the city ladies. So she smeared her with mud daily. Consequently, she had almost forgotten Bai Ling's naturally beautiful appearance. Viewing her like this now, she thought to herself, no wonder this Immortal took an interest in her. "Do not worry, from now on in my presence, there's no need to hide," Lu Changxing said with a soft smile as he patted her head. Though she was but a little girl, the desire to be beautiful is common to all. She certainly would not like to have her face covered in mud all the time. "Bai Ling will listen to the Immortal." Bai Ling obediently nodded her head. Her large eyes showed a gleam of delight. Just as Lu Changxing had guessed, she also did not like that, having her face smeared with mud every day. Which girl doesn't love beauty? Buzz! At this moment, Lu Changxing gave his storage bag another pat, and instantly, several exquisite and beautiful dresses appeared. "Which one do you like?" Lu Changxing asked with a smile. He had bought dozens of vestment robes for his own children when he was in Qingyun Market. Now that he had picked up a lovely little girl, he naturally wouldn't be stingy with a vestment robe and wanted to dress her up beautifully. Moreover, having someone by his side, shouldn't he give her some benefits? "The Immortal will give me one?" Bai Ling looked at the colorful, exquisite dresses before her and immediately her eyes widened. She had never seen such pretty clothes in all her life. She didn't even know how to describe them. They were dazzling to her eyes. "Why is the Immortal so nice to me?" Her eyes suddenly moistened as she spoke. Apart from Granny Zhao, he was the first person to be so kind to her. They had just met, and not only had he given her a name but also a gift of such precious and beautiful clothing. She felt dizzy, almost too bashful to accept it. "You were willing to follow me, so naturally I should be good to you," Lu Changxing said with a laugh as he ruffled her hair. Then he spoke in a warm voice. "From now on, you can call me brother." "Brother?" Hearing this, Bai Ling paused, her heart beating with an inexplicable stir. Then she pursed her lips, calling out somewhat shyly, "Brother, ha, good, so pick one," Lu Changxing said, laughing as he ran his fingers through her hair again. Soon after, Bai Ling looked and finally chose a white dress. Because she had never worn such a clean dress before. Brother had also said she wouldn't need to be dirty anymore, so she wanted to stay clean always. Granny Zhao, watching this unfold, also felt immense emotions stir within her, happy for the child's future. Chapter 341. My son Pingon has the talent of a martial saint. _1 Lu Changxing could tell that Bai Ling and Granny Zhao had just gone through a significant upheaval and were physically and mentally exhausted, so they did not head directly to Rui Prefecture. The journey to Rui Prefecture from here would take roughly 3 to 4 days. The two of them were mere mortals, lacking the physical and mental stamina for such a trek. They promptly found a city to settle down in. He let them rest for a night and have a good meal. With Granny Zhao's help, Bai Ling changed into a beautifully ornate white fairy dress. Her lustrous black hair was tied in twin ponytails, making her look like a cute porcelain doll. "Brother!" She approached Lu Changxing timidly, her eyes filled with hope as she showed him her new clothes. But her entire demeanor was still very nervous, her small hands clutching the hem of her dress. Like a frightened little rabbit, she looked pitifully adorable. "Little Linger is really cute." Lu Changxing smiled warmly at Bai Ling's timid and delicate appearance. He ruffled her little head, making a happy and contented smile appear on her cute face. "Let's go, it's time to eat." Then, Lu Changxing took the little girl by the hand to have a meal. Just then, Lu Changxing noticed the slight scale patterns on Bai Ling's wrist and gave them a few glances. When the little girl saw Lu Changxing looking at the scales on her wrist, her face turned pale instantly. She quickly pulled down her sleeve to cover her wrist, her delicate body trembling, and spoke in a scared, anxious voice, "Brother, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." Seeing the little girl acting like this, her voice anxious and fearful, with a cry in her tone, Lu Changxing sighed softly. He knew that over the years, the little girl had endured much ridicule and indifferent stares because of those scales. It had made her extremely sensitive in this respect, having developed a conditioned response. He gently kneeled down. Looking at her face, full of fear and self-doubt, he carefully lifted her sleeve and, seeing the white snake scales, spoke in a gentle tone, "How could this scare anyone? These scales are very pretty." Saying this, he gently stroked the scales with his hand. The white scales blended perfectly with her fair little arm, almost imperceptible unless closely examined. They felt slightly cool to the touch but not uncomfortable, quite smooth indeed. The little girl, her face full of fear, paused in surprise at his words. Ever since the scales had appeared on her body, even Granny Zhao had been a bit frightened at the time. Later, a boy from the village saw the scales on her arm and called her a monster. This led to the other villagers finding out, all of whom deemed her a monster. She had even thought about cutting the scales off with a knife. But each time she tried, it would be a bloody mess and the scales would grow back soon after, leaving no scars. It was only after Granny Zhao comforted her and said it was okay that she gradually accepted the scales. Yet, these scales remained a lump in her heart, always covered by clothes and not something she wanted others to see. Lu Changxing was the first to say that the scales, which even she was concerned and frightened by, were very pretty. At that moment, the little girl's insecure and fragile heart experienced an inexplicable feeling. Her clear eyes, black and white like peach blossoms, teared up and looked at Lu Changxing as if intoxicated but not, asking timidly, "Brother, do you really not find it scary?" Lu Changxing, seeing the clear distinction in Bai Ling's eyes, suddenly sensed an enchanting allure, bewitching and deeply moving. It made his mental spirit ripple, and he was momentarily distracted. This, if it weren't for checking with his divine sense multiple times, confirming that she was just an ordinary little girl, Lu Changxing might have thought she was using a bewitching technique. However, the charm disappeared in an instant. The distinction in her eyes remained pitifully innocent. The allure he had just felt seemed like an illusion, as if it had never been there. How could it be scary? I think it's very pretty, Lu Changxing said, looking at the timid and fragile girl while smiling gently. He was even more surprised at her condition. It had actually made him, a Foundation establishment great cultivator, slightly distracted in her presence. He didn't look any further, knowing the little girl couldn't adapt all at once. He pulled Bai Ling's sleeve back down and then ruffled her little head again, smiling, "Little Linger, don't pay too much attention to what others think. If brother says it's pretty, then it's pretty, understand?" Listening to Lu Changsheng's gentle words, Bai Ling felt as if she were basking in the spring breeze, quietly serene and peaceful in her heart. She then nodded vigorously. "Let's go, it's time to eat," he said, taking the little girl's hand to dine. Outside the room, Granny Zhao looked at this scene and also breathed a sigh of relief. She did not know what the Immortal had seen in Bai Ling, whether he would dislike her because of Bai Ling's condition. But at this moment, she felt that the scales on Bai Ling's body shouldn't be a bad thing. Otherwise, this Immortal wouldn't have taken an interest in her. Soon after, the trio went to a private room to eat. Facing a table full of exquisite delicacies, Bai Ling and Granny Zhao were dazzled and appeared a bit restrained. Lu Changsheng told them to make themselves at home, chatting with them while they ate, and began to inquire about some things. Through the conversation, Lu Changsheng gained a rough understanding of Bai Ling's situation. She was 11 years old. She lost her mother at 2 and her father at 5. After begging for food for a while, she was taken in by Granny Zhao. For some unknown reason, at the age of 7, Bai Ling discovered scales beginning to appear on her wrist. Then, scales gradually started to appear on her neck, shoulders, and lower legs as well. These white scales terrified and frightened her. However, the scales didn't cause any unusual symptoms in her body. If anything, they seemed to make her grow even whiter and more delicate, and she was much stronger than her peers. 7 years old, Lu Changsheng paused for a moment when he heard this age. In the cultivation world, children could be tested for their spiritual root when they reached the age of 5 or 6. Chapter 342. My son Pingon has the talent of a martial saint. The matter of the spiritual body is much more complicated. Some are born with unusual phenomena, some are almost the same as the spiritual root. There are also those who only awaken their spiritual body in their 40s or even requires some sort of opportunity. If one were to say that the awakening of the spiritual body at the age of 7 caused scales to grow, that still makes sense. But Lu Changsheng had also read quite a bit about the spiritual body in various books. As for Bai Ling's situation, it was simply unheard of. The cultivation world is vast and wondrous. Not only can she charm me, but she can also conceal her own spiritual root, which is definitely not simple. Lu Changxing didn't dwell on it too much, deciding to keep her with him for now. He would teach her cultivation later. After eating quite a bit, Lu Changxing noticed that Bai Ling had quite the appetite, even larger than that of an average adult. At that moment, Bai Ling also realized that Lu Changxing had hardly eaten anything. While she nibbled away, she never stopped, and the table was piled with leftovers, making her small face blush with shame. Immortal, the girl's appetite is a bit bigger than the average person's. Unfortunately, following this old woman, she has never been able to eat her fill. Old Lady Zhao spoke up. No worries, having a good appetite is a blessing. Linger, eat more, if it's not enough, order more. Lu Changxing waved his hand and said with a smile to Bai Ling. The little girl was in her growth phase, and being able to eat more was definitely a good thing. Then he turned to Old Lady Zhao and said, Old Lady Zhao, you don't need to call me Immortal anymore. Simply address me as Master from now on. When they entered the city earlier, Lu Changxing had noticed that Bai Ling severely lacked a sense of security and was somewhat socially anxious. When the glances of passers-by landed on her, her delicate body would tremble slightly, displaying fear. Lu Changxing guessed that this was an aftereffect of her previous life in the village. He also planned to continue to have Old Lady Zhao take care of her, keeping their shared life. Once Bai Ling's situation improved, he would consider bringing her to the Lu residence. Yes, Master. Old Lady Zhao quickly nodded in response. After a full night's rest with plenty to eat and drink, Lu Changxing prepared food for their journey and resumed his travels towards Rui County City in his flying boat. 4 days later, the spirit boat stopped outside of Rui County City. Lu Changsheng took Bai Ling and old lady Zhao down from the spirit boat. "Is my brother's house here?" Bai Ling asked timidly upon seeing the grand and imposing city ahead. "Yes, Linger. From now on, you and old lady Zhao will live here temporarily." Lu Changsheng smiled and nodded, taking out a transmission talisman to contact Hong Yi. One reason was to ask Hong Yi for assistance with arrangements. Also, he hadn't seen him for a long time and wanted to catch up. Suddenly, as if remembering something, his body surged with a white light, and he reverted to his true appearance. Before this, Lu Changsheng had always been using a disguised appearance. Even during their rest along the journey, he had not reverted back to his real face. "Brother!" Bai Ling, upon seeing Lu Changsheng's true face, opened her mouth in an O shape, totally astonished. Old lady Zhao was also surprised, thinking to herself that indeed he was a true immortal. She had never seen such a handsome person before. "Brother usually conceals his appearance as well," Lu Changsheng said with a light chuckle, and then took Bai Ling's small hand and walked towards Rui County City. "Brother is so handsome," Bai Ling said softly, tilting her head up slightly as she was led by the hand, a blush spreading on her face. Rui Prefecture was bustling with life, people coming and going on the streets, never ending. However, Lu Changsheng had used his mana to conceal his aura, reducing his presence. But even so, with his handsome face, upright stature, and elegant and uncommon demeanor, many women on the street couldn't help but stop and gaze at him longingly. Walking through the city, Bai Ling looked around at the busy crowd and couldn't help but feel nervous, clutching Lu Changsheng's hand tightly. It wasn't long before Hong Yi arrived swiftly. "Brother Lu, who is this?" Hong Yi, looking at Bai Ling whom Lu Changsheng was holding hands with, was somewhat astounded. He was already used to Lu Changsheng bringing along ladies, but her age and appearance didn't seem to fit the role of a daughter. And to say concubine, she seemed too young. This is a sister I recognized, named Bai Ling. I plan to have her temporarily stay here and will need Brother Hong's help in looking after her," Lu Changsheng said, briefly explaining the situation of Bai Ling and old lady Zhao. "I see," Hong Yi replied after listening, not asking further. Not far from the Lu residence, he arranged a quiet courtyard for old lady Zhao and Bai Ling. He also arranged for a maid and an old woman to serve the two. "Brother Lu, have you just come back from traveling?" Hong Yi asked Lu Changsheng after settling the two in. How did you know, Brother Hong?" Lu Changsheng asked, raising an eyebrow. 5 months ago, Brother Li returned for a visit. Seeing you didn't come over, and since I had some free time, I went with Brother Li to the Red Maple Marketplace, but Miss Lu said you were out traveling," Hong Yi said. "Fei Yu came back? Where is he now, in the Red Maple Marketplace, or did he leave?" Lu Changsheng asked, pausing at Hong Yi's words. It had been 5 months since he and Xianxia left the Red Maple Marketplace. He didn't expect Li Fei Yu to have returned right during that time. Brother Li came back this time to say farewell before heading to the Azure Phoenix Immortal City, so he left after waiting a month, Hong Yi said with a sigh, feeling a sense of reverence. He revered Li Fei Yu's actions after realizing the reality that he didn't pass the selection for the immortal sects. He had given up unrealistic dreams of cultivation, intending only to inherit his father's title as the Marquis of Rui and to break through to the energy refinement late stage in his lifetime. As for Li Fei Yu, after spending so many years in the cultivation world without success, he still had full determination. Now he was even setting out to make his way in the Azure Phoenix Immortal City, a holy place for loose cultivators, which left Hong Yi feeling wistful. Chapter 343. My son Pingon has the talent of a martial saint. Azure Phoenix Immortal City. Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng sighed. Li Fei Yu had mentioned before that he planned to venture into the Azure Phoenix Immortal City. However, prior to that, he would gain experience in other places and get a glimpse of the cultivation world. Lu Changsheng hadn't expected that by the time Li Fei Yu returned from his cultivation journey, he himself would just happen to be away for foundation establishment, causing the two of them to miss meeting each other again. Brother Li must have experienced quite a lot on this journey, Moreover, with brotherly's temperament, he might even make a name for himself and establish his immortal foundation. Knowing the deep relationship between Lu Changxing and Li Feiyu, clearly better than the one with himself, Hong Yi spoke out to console him. He then spoke of some changes in Li Feiyu. He indicated that Li Feiyu was indeed extraordinary, having been out cultivating for over 2 years. His cultivation level was about to break through the 6th level energy refinement. But hearing this, Lu Changxing felt even heavier at heart. In the cultivation world, if one wants to quickly improve one's cultivation level, the options are spiritual medicines, elixir medicines, or fortuitous opportunities. Li Feiyu's acquisition of resources certainly couldn't have come from his few skills as a spirit plant gatherer or a spiritual butcher. It must have been earned through risking his life. After chatting for a long while, the two parted ways. Walking on the way home, Lu Changxing looked at the vast, turbulent canal behind the Lu residence and suddenly let out a deep sigh. Life is as the tidal flows and people as water, only to lament how few return from the rivers and lakes. After arriving home, Lu Changxing, somewhat melancholic, saw his children and realized how quickly time passes. The older ones had grown up to his shoulder height. Pingan, what are your plans for the future? Lu Changxing, with his arm around his son Lu Pingan's shoulder, asked. He knew that he had been somewhat negligent as a father. When Lu Pingan and the younger ones were small, he had been more attentive. But as the children grew older and more numerous, the less attention he paid. Usually, on a whim when he had spare time, he would show some concern. Dad, you've said, read thousands of books and travel thousands of miles. I'm thinking of traveling in a few years to see the world. Lu Pingan, unsure why his father was suddenly asking this, scratched his head and spoke somewhat embarrassedly. As the saying goes, one should not travel far while one's parents are alive. Being the eldest son at home, he felt such behavior was not quite appropriate. But since his father asked, he didn't hold back. It would be good for you to travel around, but wait a few more years until you've broken through to the innate realm before you go, Lu Changxing said. These children lacked freedom, in fact. They stayed on Qingzhou Mountain when they were young. When they were slightly older, they stayed in Rui County City. Their days were filled with studying and practicing martial arts, with rare opportunities to go out. Wanting to go out and explore the world is normal. He wouldn't stop them from doing such a thing. After all, the children were growing up and should become independent. This kind of experience is part of the necessary journey of growth. The reason he mentioned the innate realm is that innate martial artists can use innate true qi to activate first-grade low and middle-grade talismans. By then he would be much more at ease with Lu Pingan traveling in the Jianghu. Yes, Dad, I should be able to break through to the innate realm in at most 3 years, Lu Pingan said with some excitement. He had recently become a first-rate master in the martial artists community. One more step, and he would be an innate master of the Jianghu. So, in his view, his father's requirement was not difficult. Good, my son Pingan has the qualities of a martial saint. Lu Changxing, upon hearing this, patted his son's shoulder and teased. When Li Feiyu became a first-rate master at 18, he was considered a genius. Now his son had become a first-rate master at 13. However, Lu Changxing was also aware that his son's martial talent had little to do with his aptitude. 3 parts training, 7 parts feeding. Purely thanks to his own older father spending money. Martial saint, Dad, is martial saint a martial realm above the great masters of the innate realm? Lu Pingan, upon hearing this, immediately asked. He had heard that the great martial masters could compare to some cultivators. Now hearing about this martial saint, he became curious. He wanted to know if a martial saint was as formidable as a cultivator. It should be, right? Lu Changxing said offhandedly. He was just making a playful guess, not knowing anything about a martial saint. He didn't expect that his son, who was missing a beat, would actually not catch the joke and instead asked him if there was a martial realm called martial saint. But looking into his son's eyes, he roughly understood what his son was thinking. Although the children had accepted the reality that they didn't have spiritual roots and couldn't cultivate, they still harbored fantasies about it. He let out a slight sigh and changed the subject. Pingan, if there's anything you lack, Like when breaking through to the innate realm, isn't there something called the innate elixir? If I'm not around, you can go directly to Uncle Hong and ask for it when the time comes. Don't be shy. Also, when you plan to go out, don't just run off without saying hello. Remember to write me a letter to let me know. Lu Chongqing said to his son. Don't worry, Dad, I understand. Lu Pingon nodded and said. Lu Chongqing patted his son's shoulder. He was quite confident in his eldest son, who had an honest character and would listen to what he said. Wu Yu, what are your plans for the future? Lu Chongqing then turned to his other two children and asked. Dad, I also want to travel the Jianghu, but I don't know how many years it will take to break through to the innate realm, so maybe I'll go with Brother Pingon, Lu Wuyo said, grinning. That depends on whether your brother Pingon is willing to take you. Besides, your brother Pingon hasn't even traveled far himself yet, and then he'd have to carry you, a burden. Lu Chongqing, hearing his daughter's words, laughed and said, No worries, if Wuyo's sister wants to brave the Jianghu, let me go out and check it first. Then he'll come back and accompany Sister Wuyo together. Chapter 344. My son Pingon has the talent of a martial saint. _4. Lu Pingon immediately said, as the eldest son, under Lu Lanche's tutelage, he still had a strong sense of responsibility as a big brother. Thank you, Brother Pingon. Lu Wuyo immediately clung to Lu Pingan's arm, pouted playfully at Lu Chongqing, prompting Lu Chongqing to smile warmly, and then looked towards Lu Wuyo, saying, You don't plan on trying your luck in the Jianghu as well, do you? Second brother said he wants to be a county magistrate in the future, to govern a place and bring blessings to the people. Lu Wuyo immediately spoke up first. Not bad, that's a good aspiration. After a few years, speak to your Uncle Hong. Then, you can follow him and learn, Lu Chongqing said to his second son. He approved of Hong Yi's character and conduct. He felt his children could learn something from following Hong Yi. In this manner, Lu Chongqing discussed the present, the future, and dreams with his children. He did not forget Bai Ling. Over these few days, he took time to see Bai Ling and foster a relationship with her. And he also brought her to meet his several daughters. So they could keep each other company normally, play together, chat, and it would be easier for her to integrate into the family. After living in Rui County City for 10 days, Lu Chongqing, amid the reluctant farewells of everyone, returned to Qingzhou Mountain. Having had no news from Lu Chongqing for over 5 months, naturally, his wives and concubines worried. If not for Lu Miaoge saying everything was fine and that Lu Chongqing had gone traveling with a good friend, they would have assumed something untoward had happened to him. Seeing Lu Chongqing return now, they all expressed their concern and care. Lu Chongqing had to invent a whole narrative explaining his journey, and only after working hard into the evening did he manage to placate his wives and concubines. After spending several days appeasing his wives and concubines, Lu Chongqing also began to focus on his children. Now that his son, Lu Xianji, had started cultivating after drawing qi into his body, naturally, Lu Chongqing was full of encouragement and even awarded him a vestment robe and a lower-quality flying sword magic artifact as a reward. He hoped his son would cultivate diligently to reach the 3rd-level energy refinement soon. This scene made the other siblings envious and many wives, concubines, and maids secretly wished their own children would strive and excel. But the second child with a spiritual root, Lu Chuanjin, was only 10 years old. He still had more than a year before reaching the age to start cultivation. Lu Chongqing looked forward to his children's achievements, filled with anticipation. He wondered how many achievements he would get for the number of his children who could draw qi into their bodies. Or whether there were achievements for when a child reached the energy refinement middle stage or energy refinement late stage. Afterward, Lu Chongqing chatted and shared heart-to-heart talks with his children, paying attention to their situations. Thanks to the overall atmosphere of the Lu family and Lu Miao's attentive management of the backyard, he thought that the children, regardless of their personalities, had not developed any noticeable distortions and were doing pretty well. If there was any issue, it was that the children of concubines and maids were relatively less close to him, their father. They felt more awe than affection for him. Concerning this, Lu Chongqing understood the situation. Be it his wives or his children, he could not treat everyone equally. Often with his children, it was either about their spiritual root or their mother's status. So even though he was easygoing with his children, the lack of regular contact naturally led to a decrease in closeness. Under the influence of the atmosphere and their mother's teachings, an image of dignity had formed in the children's minds. Even though he knew about this issue, Lu Changxing had no way to improve it. He now had 117 children. 28 of them had spiritual roots. Even if he only cared for those with spiritual roots, he didn't have the time and energy. All he could do was to pay a bit more attention to the children and try to ensure they didn't go astray. After finishing the heartfelt discussions with his wives and children, Lu Changxing also remembered his golden armor bean mother. He dug a hole in his courtyard, poured in some second-rank spiritual earth, and planted the golden armor bean mother. He also asked Lu Miaoyun to water and look after it on his behalf regularly. After all, the earlier it was planted, the sooner it would sprout. It couldn't be grown inside the spiritual pet bag. Lu Miaoyun, although unsure of what kind of seed it was, remembered her husband's instructions and resolved to care for it well. In the following time, Lu Changxing was dedicated to child-rearing in Qingzhou Mountain. He planned to keep shuttling between Qingzhou Mountain and the Red Leaf Valley Market once he received news from Xianxia. Chapter 345. The number 1 Talisman Path Practitioner of the Lu family, crafting the 7 Luminaries Heart Lamp. _1. Qingyun Sect. Sutra Pavilion. Xianxia, are you sure you want to choose such a technique? The guardian elder looked at the 3 techniques Xianxia had chosen. Upon seeing one of them, a strange expression crossed his face. Mastering one spell can help understand all spells. The cultivation technique I practice requires comprehension of various techniques, so I choose this one. Xiaoxia's demeanor was cool and holy, her expression calm as she made a slight bow and spoke. Since you've made up your mind, Xiaoxia, this old man naturally won't say more. However, you should be aware of our Qingyun sect's rules. You must swear an oath to the heart demon that no cultivation techniques shall be leaked. The guardian elder, seeing Xiaoxia's disposition, spoke no further, merely nodding slightly. Thank you, elder. Xiaoxia nodded, took the heart demon oath to keep the cultivation techniques confidential, and then left promptly. It seems that foundation establishment does have a significant impact on childbearing. Lu Changxing had returned to Qingzhou Mountain for over a month now. In this past month, he had hardly practiced cultivation. Apart from making talismans, he had spent all his time on trivial matters with his wives and children and on childbearing efforts. Yet despite trying hard for a month, only 3 concubines became pregnant. He realized that this must be due to his breakthrough to foundation establishment. As cultivators enhance their cultivation level, each breakthrough in a major realm makes it more difficult to sire offspring, a common sense in the cultivation world. However, the higher the cultivation level of the parents, the higher their strength, and the higher the probability that the children born will possess spiritual roots and of better quality. Now that I've broken through to foundation establishment, plus the system's boost of a 5% probability for spiritual roots, the probability and quality of my children's spiritual roots should also significantly improve. Lu Changxing thought to himself. Although he had been diligently engaged in childbearing this month, he also adhered to the principle of optimal breeding. All 3 children were conceived by concubines with spiritual roots. Therefore, there was a reasonable probability that the children too would possess spiritual roots. If she, you, and I were to have a child, it should be of good aptitude, I reckon. At that moment, Lu Changxing thought of Xiaoxia. She not only possessed a 4th-grade spiritual root and a moonlight spirit body, but she was also a foundation establishment cultivator. If the 2 were to have offspring, it would most likely result in a child with spiritual roots and one of commendable aptitude. Yet he also knew that having a child with Xiaoxia at this point would be quite difficult. Childbearing would delay several years of cultivation, and her master was unlikely to agree. Husband, grandmother has come over. It seems she has something to discuss with you. Lu Miaoyun came to the backyard at that moment, informing Lu Changxing. Something to discuss with me? Surprised by the news, Lu Changxing followed Lu Miaoyun to the main hall. In the hall, the 4th elder was sipping tea. The elderly person was now 90 years old. The once plump and aged face had aged considerably. The now completely white hair had once shown mere streaks of gray. "Grandmother." Lu Changxing immediately greeted her with a bow. "Changxing." The fourth elder nodded approvingly, her face wearing a loving smile. After chatting about family matters for a while, she disclosed her purpose for visiting. She indicated that she was getting older and was preparing to step down from her position as family elder. Therefore, she was preparing to recommend Lu Changxing for the position of the elder within the family. At the same time, she hoped Lu Changxing would instruct the Lu family's youth in talisman making when he had the time. Taking the position of elder, instructing the Lu family disciples in talisman making. Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing pondered for a moment. If given the choice, he would definitely not want to take on this responsibility. Because right now, he truly was very busy. He needed to make talismans, refine the 9 treasure jade rui, pay attention to his children, engage in childbearing, and cultivate himself. In the past month since his return, he had devoted almost all his time and thoughts to his wives and children and had barely practiced cultivation. He hadn't even managed to cultivate the 7 luminaries heart lamp technique to this day. Taking on the role of elder would consume even more of his time and energy. However, the fourth elder's plea was earnest, making it hard for him to refuse outright. After all, the elderly deserved to retire and enjoy her remaining years. Additionally, in the Lu family, being a cultivation family, the elder usually was someone from within the family ranks. Changxing, instructing the disciples in talisman making is mainly about giving lectures to enlighten them and to see if they have any talent for the talisman path. If they have talent, it would be just like when grandmother taught you and Sister Miaoga, it won't take too much time. The fourth elder saw Lu Changxing's hesitation and continued speaking. Her tone was gentle and loving, with a hint of hope and plea in her eyes. "Grandmother, instructing in talisman making is naturally no problem. As for the position of elder, please give it to Miaoga. As you know, I have no great ambitions and don't like dealing with affairs normally." Lu Changxing met the elder's gaze and spoke. Since the elder had put it that way, he felt he couldn't outright refuse. Taking just a bit of time to lecture and share knowledge of the talisman path with the Lu family disciples wasn't too demanding. He considered it a way of contributing a bit more to the Lu family. Besides, it wasn't something he could easily shrug off. Lu Changxing knew very well that if he declined, the duty would ultimately fall on his wife, Lu Miaoga. He hoped for Lu Miaoga to have fewer worries and to focus more on her own cultivation. Given that, he might as well accept on her behalf. Moreover, he was accustomed to providing such enlightenment to his own children, so it amounted to teaching a few more. Changxing, this position of elder is not only grandmother's wish but also the intent of the family head and the other family elders. Moreover, this elder position is really just a title and doesn't come with many duties. Miaoga will have other arrangements in the family in the future. The fourth elder patted Lu Changxing's hand and whispered softly. Chapter 346, the number 1 talisman path practitioner of the Lu family, crafting the 7 luminaries heart lamp. Lu Changxing understood upon hearing this that the position of family elder was the Lu family's way of further pulling him in. Otherwise, there was no such thing as inheritance of the elder's position. It couldn't be decided by the fourth elder alone. It required a vote from all the Lu family elders. "Grandmother, since you have said so," Changxing naturally accepts. Seeing the old woman's kind face, Lu Changxing didn't refuse any longer and nodded his agreement. "Good. This matter will be decided at this year's family gathering. It will be hard work for you then, Changxing." Upon seeing Lu Changxing accept, the fourth elder's face broke into a smile. Such a matter was significant and naturally wouldn't be decided on the spot. She had come to give a heads up so that Lu Changxing could be prepared. "Grandmother, it's not hard at all," Lu Changxing said with a slight smile, shaking his head. "Changxing, how are you doing with the first-grade supreme talisman now?" At that moment, the fourth elder started to show her usual concern for Lu Changxing's talisman-making skill. She would ask about Lu Changxing's progress in talisman making every half year or so. Half a year ago, Lu Changxing had already revealed skill almost comparable to that of the fourth elder. I still need grandmother's guidance. Without saying much, Lu Changxing showed his own talisman-making skill to the fourth elder. Now that he had broken through foundation establishment, he felt bold enough to be a bit more daring. He planned to accelerate his progress in the talisman path. In a few years, he would reveal his second-grade talisman-making skill to the public. Very good, very good. The fourth elder was thrilled and full of approval as Lu Changxing successfully drew a first-grade supreme talisman, her face alight with excitement. She could see that Lu Changxing's skill in making talismans was in no way inferior to her own. The talisman, even if she were to draw it herself, would not surpass the proficiency shown by Lu Changxing, or might even be inferior. Lu Miaoyun, who stood to one side, although not fully understanding, was also filled with joy and happiness. She knew that her husband's skill in the talisman path had improved again. Over the years, she had watched as Lu Changxing's talisman path skills steadily improved. Changxing, in the future for talisman making, there's nothing much grandmother can teach you, you must rely on yourself. This purple one is the inheritance for our Lu family's second-grade high-quality talisman master. This white one contains my own annotations and understandings of the talisman master inheritance over the past few decades. Now, take them and study well. The only thing grandmother wishes now is to see you become a second-rank talisman master. The fourth elder straightened the storage bag and took out a white jade case. Inside were 2 jade slips she passed to Lu Changxing with a solemn expression. Lu Changxing, seeing her expression, knew that this must be the most precious thing the old woman possessed. After all, it was extremely difficult for ordinary cultivators to acquire advanced cultivation techniques and second-rank skills inheritance. Not just because they were expensive. It was also because there were very few available in the market. This inheritance for the second-grade high-quality talisman master was probably the foundational inheritance of the Lu family's talisman path. Grandmother, Changxing will certainly not disappoint your expectations. Lu Changxing nodded emphatically, accepting with both hands respectfully. Very good, very good. The fourth elder joyfully patted Lu Changxing on the shoulder, not saying much more on the subject. After briefly chatting for a while, she went to visit several of her other grandsons. As the old woman aged, her fondness for the children grew even more. Lu Yun, Lu Miaoyun's eldest son, was also 9 years old this year. Having been discovered to have a 7th-grade spiritual root, he was very much loved by the fourth elder. However, Lu Miaoyun's second child did not have a spiritual root, and the third child only had a 9th-grade spiritual root, causing both Lu Miaoyun and the elder a bit of disappointment. Congratulations to my husband. After the fourth elder departed, Lu Miaoyun congratulated Lu Changxing with a joyous face. Her husband was not only making rapid progress in the art of talisman making, but he was also about to become a family elder, which as his wife, naturally seemed like a great cause for celebration. She felt proud and happy for her husband's achievements. Indeed, it is something to celebrate, Lu Changxing replied, smiling and nodding. Even if he was indifferent to the elder position, it was indeed a happy event for a normal person, and it would seem somewhat remiss if he appeared too calm about it. Before long, Lu Miaoyun announced the news within the household. Congratulations to my husband, congratulations, father, congratulations, daddy. The wives and children in the back courtyard, upon hearing the news, were all very happy, offering their congratulations to Lu Changxing. Their thoughts and understanding were similar to those of Lu Miaoyun. They felt that becoming a family elder was something very extraordinary and honorable. Now that their own husband and father were about to become a Lu family elder, it was naturally a remarkable achievement. Lu Changxing, seeing his wives' and children's happy faces, couldn't help but feel joyful, a smile spreading across his face. The matter hasn't been decided yet, it's enough that we know ourselves. He waved his hand and thought to himself that if they knew he, their husband and father, was already a foundation establishment great cultivator, they would be even more astonished. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Inside the practice room, Lu Changxing sat cross-legged with his eyes closed, the 7 luminaries' stars appearing tirelessly in his mind along with endless sword qi. Countless strands of sword qi gathered in his dantian, slowly forming an ancient lamp with 7 star-like flames circulating around it. 7 luminaries' heart lamp. With spiritual light in the heart as the wick and mana as the oil, a flicker of mental spirit ignites the heart lamp, dispelling elixir toxicity, protecting mental spirit, clarifying the mind to see one's true nature, and warding off external demons, should it be forged into a life-bound spiritual artifact, and with heavenly silver as the oil, it could hasten cultivation, refine mana, and make one's foundations even more pure. Furthermore, when facing an enemy, stirring the mana can unleash boundless sword chi to attack, making it a versatile tool suitable for offense, defense, and cultivation. Chapter 347. The number 1 Talisman Path Practitioner of the Lu family, crafting the 7 Luminaries Heart Lamp. After a long time, Lu Changxing slowly opened his eyes, inspected his dantian where the 7 Luminaries Heart Lamp had condensed, exhaled lightly, and his face revealed a look of joy. Through over half a month of secluded and arduous cultivation, he had finally succeeded in condensing the 7 Luminaries Heart Lamp. Next, he could spend materials to forge this 7 Luminaries Heart Lamp into his life-bound spiritual artifact. However, he did not start the forging right away, because such a task could not be completed in a short time, and it was not possible to interrupt the process. He would need to be in seclusion for several months to accomplish it. Now Lu Changxing was beginning to understand why cultivators were beyond the constraints of time. He didn't even have to spend time comprehending and learning the method to condense this 7 Luminaries Heart Lamp. Just visualizing the 7 Luminaries, condensing sword chi, and forging the heart lamp had already taken over half a month of his time. If it were an ordinary person, they would have to be in seclusion for at least 3 or 4 months, or even half a year, to condense this lamp. Sigh, no wonder cultivators cannot have too many distractions and trivial matters. With too many trivial matters, it's really hard to focus on cultivation. Lu Changxing sighed, stepping out of the practice room. He immediately went to the residence of the 4th elder to inquire about teaching the Lu family disciples about the talisman path. He planned to teach this class and then use seclusion to break through to the 7th level energy refinement as a pretext to forge the 7 Luminaries Heart Lamp, his life-bound spiritual artifact. After all, the 7 Luminaries Heart Lamp was beneficial to cultivation, and the sooner it was forged, the better. He'll let the family head know later, and you can start teaching tomorrow at Qingzhou Villa. Upon hearing Lu Changxing's intentions, the 4th elder said so. The next day, the sun shone brightly. The 4th elder then arrived at Lu Changxing's residence. In addition to the 4th elder, there was also a man in his 30s with a handsome and refined appearance, wearing a blue shirt and greeting them courteously. This man was the Lu family's young family head, Lu Miaocheng. By this year's family meeting, he would become the new family head of the Lu family. It wasn't that Lu Yuanding had done anything wrong. Instead, the term of the family head of the Lu family lasted for 20 years. This year happened to mark the end of Lu Yuanding's 20-year tenure, so he would step down to serve as an elder. Grandma, young family head. Lu Changxing greeted the 4th elder and Lu Miaocheng with a bow. Changxing. The two also nodded to Lu Changxing in return. This young family head was Lu Yuanding's nephew. That's why his temperament was somewhat similar to Lu Yuanding's. He was polite and dignified in his dealings, making him a very comfortable person to be around. Both had come for the Talisman Path class. Since it was Lu Changxing's first time teaching, the 4th elder had to come to oversee things. As for the young family head, he was there to set the scene and check on the situation, so that none of the family disciples would misbehave and offend Lu Changxing, the future elder and talisman master. Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing also called his sons Lu Xinji and Lu Chuanjin to come along. He had already noticed that both of his sons lacked talent in the talisman path. But lack of talent aside, as cultivators, having more understanding of talismans was not a bad thing. Everyone made their way to Qingzhou Villa. Uncle Fu. Lu Changxing greeted the steward of Qingzhou Villa as he saw Uncle Fu. The old man had also aged significantly and was currently in a semi-retired state. 4th elder, young family head, Changxing. Uncle Fu greeted the three of them. He felt somewhat sentimental inside. The once son-in-law of the Lu family had now become a core member. In the realm of talismans, he had surpassed Sister Miaoga in the Lu family to replace the fourth elder as the #1 person in the Lu family. He led the three to a large hall in Qingzhou Villa. Inside, there were more than 20 Lu family disciples. The youngest were 11 or 12 years old, and the oldest were only 15 or 16. We pay our respects to the fourth elder, Uncle Miaocheng, Elder Miaocheng, Teacher Lu. After receiving the message the day before, these Lu family disciples knew that Lu Changxing would be teaching talisman making. Their elders at home had also instructed them to be polite and respectful to Lu Changxing. After all, during the battle where the Lu family vanquished the Chen family, the older generation of the Lu family knew just how substantial this son-in-law was. He was not only extraordinarily gifted in the talisman path, earning the favor of the Lu family ancestor who personally bestowed the marriage, but he also had a deep relationship with a foundation establishment great cultivator. Xianxia, Chuanjin, find a place to sit down. Lu Changxing said to his two sons, then started the class. With his second-rank talisman-making skill, his foundation in this basic knowledge was exceptionally solid. The theoretical aspects were also articulated as if he had a full set of instructions. He was nothing like the fourth elder, who relied on slow self-study and could not compare to his finely honed approach. Therefore, in terms of enlightening and lecturing the newcomers on the talisman path, he could not be better suited. Lu Changxing did not hold back his skills, teaching in a straightforward and comprehensible manner, fluid and natural. Moreover, in the classroom, he broke down the steps of basic talismans for everyone, teaching them bit by bit, to the point that these children and youths were utterly enraptured. This, even the fourth elder, upon hearing Lu Changxing's lecture and the dissection of the talisman steps, couldn't help but be surprised. She felt that Lu Changxing's instruction was simply flawless, with not a single fault to find. She even experienced the sensation of reviewing old knowledge and coming to new realizations. She had originally assumed that Lu Changxing, relying on his own exploration, would have some deficiencies in his foundational knowledge. Therefore, she came to listen to the class, also thinking of giving Lu Changxing some guidance at that time to reinforce his basics. Unexpectedly, under these circumstances, she reviewed the basics herself. All right, today's class will end here. If you are interested, you can go home and practice some on your own, and I will check on your progress in the next lesson, said Lu Changxing after lecturing for almost an hour. Simply listening is of no use in talisman making. After all, even if your mind understands, if your hands are unable to execute, it's no good. To go far on the talisman path, one must unite body and mind, with meticulous and minute control over one's own spiritual power and the strength applied. Then, through continuous hard practice, one can achieve success on the talisman path. Changxing, your performance today was truly surprising to Grandma, said the fourth elder, her face full of smiles, rather moved as she spoke to Lu Changxing. Grandma is overpraising me. It's all thanks to your regular guidance, humbly replied Lu Changxing. He then spoke of his preparations to break through the 7th level energy refinement. The next lecture might be in a few months. Changxing, if you plan to give a lecture, just tell Uncle Fu a few days in advance, Lu Miaocheng spoke up. Asking Lu Changxing to give lectures obviously couldn't involve fixed times. It had to be at Lu Changxing's convenience. By the way, Changxing, do you need to exchange for a high-rank breakthrough elixir for your advancement to the energy refinement late stage? I remember the Lu family currently has 2 high-rank breakthrough elixirs, Lu Miaocheng continued. That's exactly what I intend. I'm planning to exchange for a breakthrough elixir to assist, said Lu Changxing with a smile. It wasn't about taking advantage of using contribution value for such a small benefit. It was simply that for someone with a 9th grade spiritual root, it would seem abnormal not to use a breakthrough elixir as an aid. I just so happen to be going there as well, so let's go together, Lu Miaocheng nodded promptly. Okay, Lu Changxing nodded, instructing his 2 sons to head back on their own. He went with Lu Miaocheng to exchange for the high-rank breakthrough elixir. This high-rank breakthrough elixir, when purchased in the marketplace, costs 1,200 spirit stones. But when exchanged using contribution value in the Lu family, it only costs 850 points. That's equivalent to 850 spirit stones. This is one of the benefits provided by the family, encouraging the Lu family disciples to contribute more. Lu Changxing, providing talismans for the Lu family every month, had long since accumulated enough contribution to exchange for the high-rank breakthrough elixir. After exchanging for the high-rank breakthrough elixir, Lu Changxing bid farewell to Lu Miaocheng. He could see that this young family head had always been extending goodwill towards him. But the man was also a close uncle through marriage relations, so naturally, Lu Changxing was friendly in return. For every inch of respect given, he would return a foot. I wonder when Shiyu will come. This refining of the 7 luminaries' heart lamp will likely take 3 to 4 months, mused Lu Changxing on his way back. It had been 3 months since they parted ways. She went back to Qingyun's sect to report and to cultivate the techniques for foundation establishment, so she was expected to visit in the coming months. Yuner, keep this transmission talisman for me, and if anyone tries to contact me, just tell them I'm in closed cultivation. Tell her to go directly to Red Leaf Valley Market to find Sister Miaoga if she has any issue, Lu Changxing instructed upon reaching home. He mentioned his plans for going into seclusion and left his and Xianxia's transmission talisman with his wife, Lu Miaoyun. He did this to avoid Shiyu arriving while he was not present. Chapter 348. The Effect of the 7 Luminaries' Heart Lamp, Elder of the 9 Bags Under Sun. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, for months had passed. Inside the practice room, Lu Changxing was dressed in a blue long robe, sitting cross-legged in meditation. In front of him, an ancient star lamp hovered. This ancient lamp was simple in design, its body a bronze color with a faint colorful light flowing over it. Around the lamp's dish, 7 thumb-sized dazzling gems were embedded, like 7 small stars, emanating strands of brilliant light. The 7 luminaries' heart lamp, it's done. Lu Changxing suddenly opened his eyes, looking at the ancient lamp before him. He could distinctly feel that this ancient lamp was integrated with him, connected to his mental spirit. This was a life-bound spiritual artifact. Even as a lower-grade spiritual artifact, its power far exceeded that of ordinary spiritual artifacts. And it could be taken inside the body, nurtured with the mana within one's dantian, gradually enhancing its power and quality. Moreover, in times of danger, the spiritual artifact could actively alert and protect the owner. The only downside was that if the life-bound spiritual artifact was damaged, the owner would also sustain certain injuries. Lu Changxing reached out, gripping the ancient lamp in his hand. It felt warm to the touch, lacking the coldness of metal, as if he was holding a piece of warm jade. With a slight intent of his mental spirit, he channeled mana into it, and the 7 gems on the lamp immediately released a blinding divine light, like 7 stars in rotation, with a golden flame emerging in the center. Under the starlight and golden flame, Lu Changxing looked immaculate, transcendent. Ha! Lu Changxing, holding the ancient lamp, gently blew on it. Instantly, the lamp's flame flickered, and strands of sword qi burst forth. These strands of sword qi were sharp and elegant, encircling Lu Changxing, forming a sword qi true dragon, a sword qi fierce tiger, and a sword qi barrier. Although its power is only equivalent to a single blow from an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator, having the profound origin bead at my side, I fear not the consumption of mana, and in a moment's thought, I can unleash up to 100 strands of sword qi, which even a foundation establishment middle-stage cultivator would find difficult to withstand. If it's a group battle, facing energy-refining cultivators, it would be a one-sided slaughter. Lu Changxing observed the strands of sword qi around him, felt the spiritual pressure, and estimated their power. Immediately with a thought, the sword qi dissipated, and the 7 luminaries' heart lamp transformed into a streak of light, entering his body and traveling along his meridians to hover above the qi ocean core. Having a tangible spiritual artifact and merely a technique-conjured 7 luminaries' heart lamp were completely different experiences. Now that the spiritual artifact was inside his body, Lu Changxing also found it quite mystical. I wonder how effective the 7 luminaries' heart lamp is in condensing mana. Lu Changxing thought of the effects of the 7 luminaries' heart lamp on concentrating mana at its foundation. This was also one of the most formidable effects of the 7 luminaries' heart lamp. He took 2 qian of heavenly silver from his storage bag as fuel for the 7 luminaries' heart lamp. Immediately, the golden flame of the 7 luminaries' heart lamp blazed brightly, then entered into the elixir lake, making the liquid mana inside the elixir lake bubble and churn, as if boiling. Time went by little by little. After a long time, when the fuel was exhausted, the elixir lake returned to calmness. Tisk! Down goes 2 qian of heavenly silver, and I hardly saw any effect, only a faint sense of purer mana. According to the 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture, with the 7 luminaries' heart lamp condensing mana, the foundation can be enhanced by up to 30%, and this 30% probably requires burning upwards of 100 jin of heavenly silver. Lu Changsheng couldn't help but shake his head in amazement. Ordinarily, the 7 luminaries' heart lamp uses mana as fuel, deployed in battle, expelling elixir toxicity, guarding the mental spirit, and resisting external demons. But to condense the mana foundation, one had to use heavenly silver as the fuel. This heavenly silver was priced at 100 spirit stones for 1 liang. If one were to burn up to 100 jin of heavenly silver, that is, burning up to about 150 or 200,000 spirit stones. Even for Lu Changsheng, such a figure was astonishing. However, a 30% enhancement in mana, not only solidifying the foundation, is also beneficial for the probability and quality of core formation. The cost in spirit stones, one could say, is worth it. Moreover, the price of 100 spirit stones for 1 liang is what I paid at the Qingyun Commerce Guild. If I purchase it myself, at least I could get it for 20 to 30% cheaper. Lu Changsheng pondered in his heart. He was in no rush to use heavenly silver to condense his mana foundation. This kind of thing could completely wait until there were surplus spirit stones. Or wait until he had a solid base, then slowly start to purchase heavenly silver. Besides, such a process is not accomplished overnight. It's a long-term project. It's about time to go out, otherwise after being closed up for 4 months, the family might think something has happened to me. Lu Changsheng used the cleansing technique, cleaned up the practice room, packed up the heavenly canopy 5 elements formation, and walked out of the practice room. Husband. Daddy. Outside the courtyard, Chu Zhenjin was telling a story to their little son and daughter. Upon seeing Lu Changsheng, they immediately voiced their surprise joyfully. Zhenjin, I've made you worry. Lu Changsheng knew that his prolonged seclusion must have worried his wives. Was your cultivation smooth, husband? Chu Zhenjin, clad in a light pink and white dress, her delicate features charming, hugged Lu Changsheng and asked with concern. Having closed up for so long, naturally, I've made a breakthrough. Lu Changsheng smiled, gently patting his petite wife's back. After all these years, Chu Zhenjin was still very attached to him. But with children now, when he wasn't around, she would focus her heart and energy on the kids. Congratulations, husband. Chu Zhenjin, hearing this, immediately congratulated him cheerfully. Having been on Qingzhou Mountain for many years, she too was practicing cultivation and had gained quite an understanding of it. She knew that Lu Changsheng's breakthrough this time was to the 7th level energy refinement, which was the energy refinement late stage. At Qingzhou Mountain, reaching the energy refinement late stage already qualified as a master. Congratulations, Daddy. Congratulations, Daddy. The 2 little ones beside also followed with their congratulations. What story is Mom telling you? Lu Changsheng looked at his son and daughter, took out 2 spirit fruits from his storage bag and handed them over, as he affectionately ruffled their heads and asked with a smile.